7 o'clock sharp. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance as you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silence or a silent prayer as you find appropriate. And I hope that people can include Council Members Mejia and Mayers in your prayers. They are suffering some family emergencies at this time. Thank you. Please be seated. Council members, there's an agenda before you. Are any changes needed to the agenda? And does anyone have a conflict of interest, which is to say, do you stand to benefit financially from any item on the agenda, or are you an interested party, so interested party that you have a conflict of interest from that deep interest in any item on the agenda this evening? Hearing none, everybody's sure there's no changes required? May I please have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda of October 4th, 2021 for the legislative meeting.
Seconded.
Motion made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Is there any discussion of the agenda? Are there any public comments? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Thank you. Council members Mejia and Councilmember Mayers, I'm not expecting to be in attendance this evening, and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. We have two presentations. One of them is a proclamation to recognize Domestic Violence Month. Please hold on. Get it up on my screen. I'll start with the English. Whereas domestic violence is an epidemic affecting individuals in every community, regardless of age, economic status, sexual orientation, gender, race, religion, or nationality. And whereas domestic violence remains a major public health, social justice, and human rights issue requiring particular attention. And whereas the COVID-19 pandemic and the related stressors and isolation have led to a dramatic increase in domestic violence. And whereas there's an urgent need more than ever for communities to get involved by increasing awareness of domestic violence, supporting organizations that support victims of domestic violence, and promoting efforts to eliminate domestic violence in our community. And whereas the wide prevalence of domestic violence compels all of us to come together and get involved as a coordinated community effort to end the abuse of violence in our relationships, in our families, and in our community. And whereas Domestic Violence Awareness Month provides an excellent opportunity for residents to learn more about preventing domestic violence and to show support for the numerous organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy services and assistance to victims. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mayor and Council of the Town of Riverdale Park, Maryland, that the month of October is recognized as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Residents of Riverdale Park are urged to work together to spread awareness of domestic violence and to wear purple or illuminate their homes with purple light as a visible sign that our community supports those who are impacted by domestic violence. And now in Spanish. Considerando que la violencia doméstica es una epidemia que afecta a individuos en todas las comunidades, independientemente de la edad, situación económica, orientación sexual, género, raza, religión o nacionalidad, y considerando que la violencia doméstica sigue siendo un problema de salud pública, justicia social y derechos humanos que requieren atención especial. Y considerando que la pandemia de COVID-19 y los factores interesantes relacionados al aislamiento han provocado un aumento dramático de la violencia doméstica, y considerando que hay una necesidad urgente más que nunca para que las comunidades se involucren por aumentar la conciencia de la violencia doméstica, apoye a organizaciones que apoyan a las víctimas de violencia doméstica y promover esfuerzos para eliminar la violencia doméstica en nuestra comunidad. Y considerando que la amplia prevalencia de violencia obliga a todos a unirse y participar como un esfuerzo coordinado de la comunidad para poner fin a la violencia abusiva en nuestras relaciones, nuestras familias y nuestra comunidad. Y considerando que el mes de concientización sobre violencia doméstica proporciona una excelente oportunidad para los residentes a aprender más sobre prevención de la violencia doméstica y mostrar apoyo a las numerosas organizaciones e individuos que proporcionan apoyo crítico, servicios y asistencia a las víctimas. Ahora, por lo tanto, ser proclamado por el alcalde y el consejo de la ciudad de Riverdale Park, Maryland, que se reconoce el mes de octubre como mes de concientización sobre violencia doméstica. Los residentes de la ciudad de Riverdale Park se insta a trabajar juntos para difundir la violencia doméstica y usar ropa color morado o iluminar sus hogares con luz morado como un signo visible que apoya a nuestra comunidad quienes se ven afectados por la violencia doméstica. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, the Zoom window expanded, so it's going to take me a second to get the agenda back up, is the presentation from town staff on repurposing of 5000 and 5002 Queensbury Road.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the community. Mr. Shelton is going to lead us through this, and then Ms. Lewis will have some comments along the way, and I may as well. We think it's important to bring the mayor and council up to speed on where we are as it relates to these two properties that the town acquired in 2020. Mr. Shelton?
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Good evening, Mayor and Council, and members of the public and staff. Here tonight to, as was said, talk about the repurposing of 5000 and 5002 Queensbury. I'll be going over the details of the properties, the current scenario, of the environment surrounding these properties, the budget already approved for the alterations to these properties, town staff's recommended use for the future use of these properties, as well as the timeline for that future use. So the first property is 5000 Queensbury. It's a single family home on a 9,000 square foot lot. On March 2nd of 2020, the town mayor and council adopted ordinance 2020 OR-OR2 to approve the purchase of this property. The property was then purchased for $268,000 on April 23rd of that same year. 5002 right next door, just to the east, is another single family home on a slightly smaller lot, just 8,600 square foot. This was also approved on the March 2nd legislative meeting with the adoption of ordinance 2020 OR-01. The purchase price of this property was $220,000 on the same day, April 23rd, 2020. These properties are those rounded off in red here. There we go. I'm not sure if anybody can see my mouse, but these properties are the ones squared off here in red. The yellow properties are the municipal center, with this being the police department, the town center being in the center, and Department of Public Works on the east side. And this here in the green is the Riverdale Elementary School building. Current scenario, the current environment in this area is one of very tight enclosure is the best way probably to put it. The Department of Public Works enclosed yard is too small, which presents a safety concern. There's often a lot of large trucks that need to pass through this area. And it's very tight for these trucks. And the concern is that that any trucks that are left on unsecured lot will be an attractive nuisance or create a safety issue. There's also no secured parking available for the police department vehicles. In fact, in this aerial photo, you can see some of the police vehicles parked along the southern border of our property here. There's also limited parking available for Riverdale Elementary School teachers and staff and residents conducting business at the municipal center, as well as town employees. The Riverdale Elementary School parking overflows and goes along Queensbury, not only towards the municipal center, but I learned from a staff member at the school last week that the teachers and staff are also parking down Queensbury, heading west on past Taylor Road, parking in front of residential properties. And in fact, I even took some pictures that day to show the existing status of the Riverdale Elementary School parking lot. As you can see, they are double parked and illegally parked in more ways than one. And it is a very full parking lot. And so I was again surprised to hear that not only are they parking in front of the municipal center and on Riverdale Road, they're also parking further into the residential neighborhoods as well. And so, yes, parking here is quite tight. I took this photo of the students being let out of school and parents picking them up. As you can see, it's pretty tight here as well. It's actually not as crazy as I thought it would be. It's usually even more packed than this down this area. But I was speaking with that staff member at the elementary school, and they said that it had actually slowed down later in the week because earlier that week there was an incident involving two vehicles where they had a minor collision, and so thankfully there was no children involved that were leaving the school, but that did cause a lot of parents to try to park or pick up their children in another location. And again, here's some of the cars parked to pick up those children. So the existing budget for this project in 2020, the town received a $50,000 state grant for the installation of lighting infrastructure on this location, because the final use of this site has not yet been approved. We limited our bond bill scope to that only of a lighting infrastructure, because any sort of project that we put on this site would require some lighting. We've also used some of our CDA 30-year loan, which was originally $548,000. We've used $493,000 of that to purchase both of the homes. We've transferred $10,000 from the CIP unrestricted, and that leaves us with $65,000 left for demolition of the two properties. And the town's recommended use is parking. This would specifically shared parking with Riverdale Elementary School. Staff believe that this would help improve the safety of both the residents and anybody interacting with the municipal center and police departments and Department of Public Works. As you saw from the photos, everybody's crammed in pretty tight down here, and the lack of parking is making it unsafe to maneuver a vehicle, certainly during the busier times around the elementary school. This recommended parking change would include electric vehicle charging stations. We would be able to plant native trees and plants outside on the brim of the parking lot, and we would recommend using pervious asphalt on this location as well. Here is a conceptual drawing that we have of one potential parking scenario. This concept has 47 potential parking spaces. Here we can see the handicap parking is closest to the entrance of the parking lot, as well as the electric vehicle parking. And this would be directly across from the Riverdale Elementary School parking lot. You can still see from the satellite photos here at the bottom that they're already double parked again that day. This was the second concept. This one has 43 potential spaces. This one has a more central opening to the parking lot, with the compact being on the side instead of in the middle. The town staff also considered using the new parking lots strictly for town vehicles, but the distance from the Department of Public Works could prove to be an issue, as the trucks delivering items would be pretty far away from their intended destinations. The Department of Public Works vehicles would also need to be driven through unsecure, pedestrian crowded or streets on Queensbury, specifically those that were shown in the photos of the kids actually walking down the street as they're being let out of school. Having only town vehicles and strictly Department of Public Works vehicles may not be the most aesthetically, may not be the what the look that the town is going for. And the police department is currently using driveways at these properties to park their police vehicles. So the town staff's recommended timeline is to explore partnership with Prince George's County Public School System for the development of the parking lot. This would include determining the number of spaces that the school system would require, and also determining precisely how many of the spaces that we would like for town use as well. And we would continue with the demolition of 5000 and 5002 Queensbury. The Maryland Historical Trust has cleared the properties for demolition. And then the next step would be mayor and council approval of the municipal center parking improvement plan, with additional funds being added to the CIP item during the FY23 budget planning process. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Director Shelton. Are there any questions from the council?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please go ahead, Councilman Lingua.
Regarding in terms of putting public works vehicles there, what if the lot were used to be able to store some of the additional patrol vehicles that we have down in that area, thus freeing up that space for public works vehicles?
If I could take that, Mr. Shelton. The recommendation is to make it a shared lot with the school system, and to keep the public works vehicles in a area in front of the public works building. As part of the municipal center project, the recommendation is to enclose the area in front of public works. So there's their yard would actually be in front, and that would also provide a secured area for police vehicles and for staff parking as well.
So essentially closing down that bottom half of Queensbury.
Yes, sir. And right now, and Mr. Shelton, can you pull up perhaps the first map that showed a visual? So if you look on the screen to the east of the yellow and green boxes there. So we're currently parking public works vehicles in that cul-de-sac area. That's not town property. Those vehicles are currently parked in actually in a park. That's park and planning property. Across, if you follow the green line north, you can see a black line. That's the lot line. That's our boundary. And so as part of this, and Ms. Lewis may want to chime in, we're looking to have a discussion with Park and Planning to see if we can have an agreement where we can legally use, by agreement, that additional space at the end of the street. And we are also discussing with the designers for the municipal center project about how to have a secured pedestrian way that could run along there. Because right now you have volumes of school children who get out from school and their parents, and they head east on Queensbury, and then they cut across the park. And right now they head through an active lot where we may have our tractor or street sweeper or bucket truck or our large dump trucks moving about. And that's the overarching concern for why that area needs secured. Does that answer your question, sir?
Pardon me. To an extent, yes. It just kind of seems like we're trying to deal with the town's property. We're trying to deal with park and planning property, and we're also trying to deal with county school property. And as much as I admire the effort being made to accommodate the community's elementary school kids and being able so they can get safely to and from, be it their parents picking them up or to a sidewalk where they can go home. I really hope discussions that we have with both those entities is going to get the accommodation that we're looking for, so that we could expand an area for this municipal center. Is that feasible, do you think?
To expand our physical building?
Well, essentially to what essentially you're looking at doing is being able to enclose in the area that you're talking about there out front.
Yes, sir. And that would be a secured fenced area between the yellow and green lines from the entrance to the public works yard. So
Okay.
there'd be an enclosed area there. And then in the red block, there would be parking. And we have not had conversations with the public school system. We do know that there's been a number of requests to see if we could provide parking for their teaching staff. And so a thought is to approach the school system, and to see if we could enter into a partnership for funding improvements to that lot, the red squared lot, if you will, where it would be a municipal lot, and perhaps they would have X number of spaces during school days, during certain hours, in exchange for either capital dollars or by permit and leasing the spaces to help fund any improvements there. The other things would be that lot, in addition to what Mr. Shelton mentioned about being true to the town's sustainability goals in design. There could also be some sort of a perimeter wall with a monument sign welcoming residents and visitors to the town's municipal center. This would not be a lot that you may see for a commercial, low-end commercial complex. This would be the entrance to the town's municipal center.
Right.
And we are trying to balance all the different needs, sir. And working with park and planning and the schools and our residents. And this is a complicated equation, frankly.
Well, it is. It's probably to the point where it gets pretty frustrating to try and figure out. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yes, sir.
Again, which going back to the whole concept of three entities, working together to try and come up with a good solution for essentially whom everyone is trying to, serve, residents and the kids of the community. So I just hope that's kept in mind. In terms of the lot, in terms of what you're proposing in terms of like pervious surface, I think that's a good idea. Charging stations, it looks like by the drawings, what I could see, 2 were set up, 2 charging stations.
Mr. Shelton, can you put that back on the screen, please?
You had 2 versions, and it looks like you had 2 charging stations. Is that right?
Yes, it looks like there's 2 in each of those.
Okay, and in this one, you have 3 handy spots, and in the other one, you said, okay, you had 3, and there's just cornered differently.
Mhm.
Okay, in terms of just, I mean, I right now, I just don't have an opinion on the ingress egress on this lot. Yeah, I think it's just going to take more thinking. That's it's an interesting concept on both of them, on which one to do. I think somehow how this can be useful to. I think if really. I guess when it comes down to this lot, I'm just trying to see that if we're looking to help the school, then we should be looking to be providing, considerable number of spaces during the day for them, and let them figure out, who is going to be parking in there, and communicate that with the town. I don't know if the rest is, if we want to be setting aside, if we're going to be cordoning off the back area, if we're working towards that, and if it's successful, then does it make sense to be able to leave other spots open for anyone from the public who's coming to either conduct business at town hall or at the police department?
From a
That's the
staff
question I have.
perspective, we would agree with everything you're saying, sir.
Okay. Okay, I mean, I think in that way, it frees up some of the street. Then it's a determination of to what extent, how much parking do we want to provide on the street? With the build out, the space down in front of the municipal center is going to change. It's going to change the parking dynamic there. And if we're looking to have that as a somewhat open space, for folks to be able to use, then this lot becomes all the more important. That's, I'm just going to leave it at that because that's about as far as my thinking is taking me on this. But thank you very much for this so far.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Siddiq, you have your hand up. Please comment.
Yes, first I've heard of this. Seems like we've acquired a very valuable plot of land. I'm just wondering if converting it to a two-dimensional parking lot is not taking advantage of the valuable location of this land. A parking lot would be utilized at most 30% of the time. I'll take the rest of my concerns offline and contact you separately.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, do we have a plan for, assuming if this project goes forward, for maintenance of this parking lot? It occurs to me, not just to the actual surface itself, but where you have people parking, you're going to end up with, refuse and litter and et cetera. And it occurs to me that would be an added responsibility for the town, and entirely possible that we already have staff on hand who can handle that, but just wanted to ask the question.
Ms. Lewis?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. We would certainly add that litter patrol to the parking lot. We'd also have receptacles in convenient locations, so there's a place for trash as people are entering and exiting their vehicle. The staff does do litter patrol throughout town, and this would just be an additional location where we carry out that function.
Okay, thank you. And then just one other comment. Clearly this parking space is needed between the municipal center and school and whatnot. And we of course always want to protect those kids and their parents walking to and from school. But I would just like to point out that as we've, I've discussed before that, we need to take into account the effects of climate change and everything we do as a town. And I'm glad to hear that we've done that with the surface here. But I hope we can all, as we continue to grow as a town, when projects like this come along, think of how we can develop in ways that don't require additional parking and take advantage of, pedestrian access, public transportation, mass transit, all those kind of things. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Foe.
Good evening, everyone. My point was just to talk to the new council members about the derivation of this project. I have been in discussions with the principal of the elementary school, and what they have on site at this point is, I believe, 31 spots for 73 staff members. And I don't know that if you've ever been down there. This is Ward 2. It's right down the road from my house. The parking situation that is created on Queensberry is quite bad during the day. I mean, I can think we've had an accident that town staff referenced just happening today. I know that there was a bus incident that occurred, and the town managers conveyed to me that we constantly have students walking back behind that area. And it's the site as is right now. There needs to be revision. We are landlocked, kind of, and with the purchase of these two houses, I think we make it more sustainable to staying in the location, that we're spending, over $1 million on fixing at this point. I just think that you need to get down there and see what it looks like at drop-off time, morning drop-off time, and afternoon pickup time. And I do believe that in the summer times, this lot may remain unused a little bit to an extent, Councilman Sadiq. But I think that ultimately, when you talk about that 30% number, we're 40 teachers that need parking spots in the day. So I do believe ultimately there is a dialogue that we could have with Prince George's County Public Schools to try and tie them into this, and MNC PPC in the background. This is, I think they would want us to stay on site and try and assist in the creation of this. So I just wanted to catch you up to date and just let you know that this is a major issue in Ward 2. And I'm excited to see what we can come up with from the spot.
Thank you,
Councilmember
Councilmember Foe.
I'll CC you on my reply.
Thank you, council member. I appreciate that.
And Mr. Mayor, if there's no other questions from the council, I'd like to add a few thoughts.
Okay, I have actually a few comments and questions myself. So would you
I'll
rather
hold,
go?
sir.
Okay. So I first wanted to thank Councilmember Foe for the statistic about the deficit of parking spots. I appreciate very much the numbers, and knowing that there are roughly 40, round numbers, 40 people who are looking for spots who don't have them right now. In response to the comments about turning this into a parking lot, I'll just point out that it doesn't have to stay a parking lot forever. We are giving future councils some breathing room to expand town government buildings when we set this up, and we should keep that in mind. So that's just a comment. And my last is a question, and that is about the landscaping / stormwater management pieces of this. Is there any way that we can preserve the trees that are existing on site at this time, or are they not in good shape and not worth preserving? Can we talk about the current planted, physical environment now and whether we can preserve that?
Ms. Lewis?
If I may, we've not done an assessment of the trees, but in looking at them and the amount of maintenance that we're doing in terms of falling branches, I would think we'd want to start anew with plants that and trees that would function or thrive in that location. But to your point, it certainly needs to be landscaped, especially along Taylor Road. The sidewalk there is pretty narrow between Queensberry and 410. And so there's an opportunity to create a sense of more space there. And so the landscaping on that side of the parking lot would really need to be sensitive to pedestrian traffic and at the same time more welcoming and creating a sense of safety. So we have some opportunities, if you will, starting from scratch to landscape it in a way that takes advantage of the topography and just area of the site and where the parking spaces will be located, and how to make the perimeter attractive as well as create a sense of safety.
Okay. So we can continue the discussion about that after there's been an assessment and we have a perhaps slightly firmer design.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Town
And that
Manager.
was a part of the demolition project to get a quick assessment by town's arborist on the health of those.
Thank you for reminding me for my fourth question. I was trying to remember that. Have we reached out yet to Community Forklift about the demolition and whether they can participate in that?
Yes, yes, and we would schedule their extraction of reusable materials right before the demolition.
Okay, but they do know about it and they've
They
said,
do know about it. We've talked with them months ago. Yes.
okay, just seeing what they've extracted from other places, then I just think there might not be much left when they're done. And so it would be really great to see, wholesale recycling of those two older houses.
We cut out demolition costs, and they're excited about the prospects of it. Yeah.
That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Town Manager.
Yes, so briefly, I also have to share with the council that in 2013, I believe it was, the town submitted a grant application to the state, and that was through Community Legacy. And funds were expended towards redesigning parking in front of Town Hall to add parking facilities. And that work was never completed. And in the final report filed in 2016, the state was advised that the town was going to complete the addition of parking in front of Town Hall with local dollars. And that too has not yet happened. So from my perspective, if not here, then we do have to figure out how we're going to address not parking just to comply with the state requirement from years ago, but more so the competing demands and the safety of the students in that. So towards that end, perhaps, Mr. Mayor, we could schedule a time where council members who are available and yourself and staff perhaps can meet there, and preferably when students are being let out. It seems more orderly in the morning, but when at the end of the day, when students are let out, to see the number of students to just take off running down Queensbury. And our concern is, we're moving equipment in big trucks and avoiding any sort of a tragedy.
Understood. I'm less orderly at the end of the day myself, so I understand that the kids probably are as well.
Yes.
Looks like Councilmember Lingua may have additional questions or comments.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Real brief, just a couple things. Regarding the points that Councilmember Foe was bringing up. Yes, I've seen the same thing in the time I've been on with council. This has been dealing with issues in terms of arrival and departure of students has always been a great challenge for all parties involved. And a lot of it has to do with the traffic in the area and part of that is the traffic on the streets, which is overflow parking for the teachers. Ideally, they'd like to have cars off the street during that time during the school day. So it gives everybody a clear sight line. But unfortunately, due to the numbers that Councilmember Foe pointed out, that's just not the case. And putting in a lot here would substantially help alleviate that and provide for a safer experience for everybody. And my other hope is that Councilmember Sadiq, when you're providing your comments and concerns, that you do CC all of those.
Definitely.
No.
Okay. Any additional council comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Ms. Katz?
Yes, thank you. I just have a few thoughts I'd like to share. I'm obviously I'm by no means a traffic designer in any way, shape, or form, but as I've listened to the conversation tonight, quite a few of my questions have been answered, which is great. But I just had some thoughts to share, and kind of has to do with the design. So the first thought I had was, you know, the exit onto Queensberry Road of the 40, potentially 47, or maybe even just 42 teachers that might park there. Is that, yeah, was any thought given to exiting onto Taylor Road? Because exiting onto Queensberry is a choke point. It looks like, for me, it looks like a choke point. And also they need to cross crosswalks, definitely, to get out of the area. And Taylor Road, potentially, if people are trying to get to 410, it gets them to that major artery more quickly. Just a thought, you know, how this would be used, I think, has been thought through for sure, but I just wonder if a little more expertise might be applied to the design, because as I see the arrows going around the lot with the intention of the lot working in a consistent direction, I was thinking things of like angled spaces ensure that people use that intended direction. But then again, I don't know if it reduces the number of spaces. Once again, I'm not a designer, I don't know. So that's another thought I had, the actual, those, especially those spaces along Taylor Road, maybe if they were angled, that would ensure that people could easily back out and go in the desired direction. I'm also thinking with providing this obviously needed thing of a bunch of much more parking close to the elementary school, all of a sudden you're taking cars that are currently, like you said, spread out down these side streets, down Taylor Road, down Queensberry, people are parking all kinds of places, and you're concentrating these cars into this box. And I'm curious, with all the intentions that this would be helpful, I'm wondering if it would actually, in practice, have some unintended consequences for the amount of traffic and cars, and even just cars exiting out of that lot trying to get onto Taylor. There's nowhere, you know, for them to line up to do that, really. Only maybe, I don't know how many cars could be coming out of that lot simultaneously to try to turn left or right onto Taylor. So just some kind of modeling for how this might really work in practice to try to head off any unintended consequences. And the other thought was with the 2 charging stations, wonderful, you know, wonderful addition. But I think that, you know, to the point of maybe this won't always be a parking lot, I understand that. But I'm wondering if there's infrastructure for more than 2 charging stations, even if 2 is all we could have now. Because I think 2, with the way that the electric car presence on the road seems to be expanding very quickly, I think 2 is not going to hold us for very long, where you know, in the future, I think there's going to be exponentially more charging stations around. So just a thought too, does the infrastructure even exist to add even more than 2 over time to this lot, if this lot were to persist in being here? And then the other thing I have, you all kind of touched on, is pedestrian flow. Certainly with 42 to 47 vehicles now in a concentrated place and the kids getting out of school, even if it's the teachers who aren't going to be leaving at the same time as the kids, which is one of those kinds of modeling considerations, if it's reserved just for teachers. But are parents going to be pulling in there not to park, but just to, you know, make the pass to get their kid, you know, that kind of, there's some space to put their car to go around that circle. But is pedestrian flow in this whole area being considered, as well as the, you know, the really larger impact of many more cars going to be in this space around the elementary school during certain times? So those were just the thoughts that I had. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Katz. I take your points very much to heart. And in fact, I was somewhere that's a relatively nice place, nice urban design for pedestrians place. And there were some oddities about the layout of the parking lot and how pedestrians worked within it. So I take your point very, very well on that. So thank you. Any additional public comments or council comments? Very quiet. My crickets are not singing tonight. So Mr. Town Manager, I guess there's no action to be taken this evening. Is that correct?
Not this evening. We would like to schedule, and Ms. Barnes can assist in that matter in terms of when we may be able to meet and walk. If we can't do it in a small group, then I would encourage members of the council, as Councilmember Foe did, to try to go and see the chaos that occurs often, and perhaps view this as trying to bring order to some of that chaos. And that's in terms of next steps. We would like, after the council has a chance to digest this, and we will make sure you all were emailed a copy of this evening's presentation, that we'd bring this back perhaps in November, because if this is something that we're going to be seeking a funding plan for fiscal 23, it's budget time now. And we would need to have those conversations as quickly as possible. So we'd be looking for general consensus, so we can move forward and put together plans to bring back and receive additional input from the council.
Okay, very good. I've definitely seen some of the afternoon chaos on election days when I've been there, but I would be more than happy to swing by on another day and take a look, as I think other council members can as well. Okay. There are no, Ms. Katz, your hand is still up. Was that just left up? Went down. Thank you. Okay, let's move on the agenda. And oh, look, I'm the next thing on the agenda, the mayor's report. The first thing I'd like to bring up, I mentioned earlier that the two council members who are absent, Councilmember Mejia and Councilmember Mayers, are having family emergencies. Councilmember Mejia has actually missed a large number of meetings, and I can, if members of the council we want to duck out a few of us to a private room perhaps, or a telephone call, I can tell you more details. I'd rather not violate the privacy of those council members, but I can say that these issues are as serious as they come. And so anyway, as I was saying, Councilmember Mejia has missed a large number of meetings, and I would like it if we could have a formal motion from the council to forgive the recent absences of Councilmember Mejia, and forgive this evening's absence by Councilmember Mayers. So can I have such a motion?
Mr. Mayor, is this something we can bring up under new business?
We can, I just don't want to forget.
Well, I think it might be good to do that then, so that way we can, in the meantime, hammer out some language that
Okay.
would be appropriate.
Okay, I'm happy to do that.
On something like this, I think that's important.
Okay. Very good. My next item is we had an election on September 11th. Those of you who were at the work session met Councilmember Smith, but I want to congratulate him on his win in the election and welcome him to the council. He and I had a 2.5-hour conversation last Friday night discussing open issues, things going on in Ward 1, and he asked me a bunch of questions, and I emptied my brain more or less about everything that I could think of in Ward 1, and just like to welcome him and congratulate him on his win in the election. We also had a presentation last week on flood mitigation. I received a phone call, actually it was a text message from County Councilmember Glaros a day or two later. She wants to get together to discuss some of the issues that came up in that meeting. We are both having trouble finding a slot in our schedules, but I look forward to having a discussion with her shortly about the county's efforts to mitigate flooding there. And I will wrap up my report with a discussion of the COVID-19 pandemic. The situation in the county, the statistics in the county are getting slowly better. So 2 or 3 weeks ago, we had 22 diagnoses per day per 100,000 population, which was bad. And we are down now to about 15. And there's a very distinct downward trend over the last 2 weeks in diagnoses. And this is really good news. And I want to thank everyone in town, everyone in the zip code, and everyone in the county for working hard to adhere to the mask mandates coming from county executive, and also to be vaccinated. All of these are helping, and we need to keep it heading in the right direction. And I'm particularly happy that my concern that there might be an uptick due to the schools doesn't seem to be happening at this time. And I will find a little piece of wood here to knock on that stays not happening. The other thing I'll say is I went down to the National Mall yesterday near the Washington Monument. Was that just yesterday? No, that was on Saturday. On Saturday, and saw the flags exhibit. And that was the day that the death toll in the country had crossed over 700,000, or more than 700,000 little white flags planted on the National Mall. And it was really devastating to see. It was heart-wrenching. And so I'm glad to see that the numbers are going down. I'm glad to see that we're improving, but we still have a lot of work to do, and we need to keep up our resolve while that is happening. That concludes my report for this evening. The next item on the agenda is the monthly finance report.
Mr. Jones?
Sure, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council, members of the public. Tonight's finance report covers the months of July, August, and September. Tonight, we will focus on September and the year-to-date totals for the revenue and expenditures. So for the current fiscal year, in the month of September, the town received $690,648 in revenue. For expenditures, that total was $481,688, with a net of $208,960. If we look at the previous year for fiscal 2020 for September, the town had brought in a bit more income. Tangible personal property tax was higher in the previous fiscal year. And I covered this in the revenue analysis report last week, but the town received roughly $278,000, which makes up much of the difference there. As the previous fiscal year, the town received a significant more amount of revenue. Expenditures for the previous fiscal year came in at $514,427. For the current fiscal year, our expenditures are not as high as the town continues to be conservative with its spending. So year to date, for the current fiscal year, revenue totals $1,425,396. Expenditures are at $1,507,494, with a deficit total of $82,098. If we look at the previous fiscal year, revenue was up a bit, again, because of the higher tangible personal property tax. Expenditures were also higher. And as I said before, for the current fiscal year, we continue to be conservative with our spending. So yeah, that pretty much concludes the finance report, which covers the revenue and expenditures for the current fiscal year, as well as the year-to-date total. And I guess I'll take up any questions that anybody might have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Jones. Councilmember Sadiq has his hand up. I'll allow him to ask the question that I am probably thinking of too. Go ahead.
I'll retract my question. I think I got it.
Okay, well, the question I'm going to ask is the September headings seem to be off from the others, and just making sure that the September, the leftmost column is fiscal year 2022, correct?
Oh, yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Just
Thank you
wanted to
for
make
catching
sure.
that.
Of course. Are there additional council questions?
Nope, that was mine.
Okay, Councilmember.
That was mine. Yeah.
Okay, very good. Are there any public comments or questions? Okay, Councilmember, does anyone wish to make a motion to adopt the treasurer's report subject to audit?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the treasurer's report for October 4th, 2021, subject to audit.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Sadiq. Is there any additional discussion of this item? Any public comments? Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
And I will abstain. The motion passes 401. That brings us to the correspondence summary. All members of the council and all persons who downloaded the packet have a correspondence summary. Are there any questions or comments with the correspondence summary? Oh, I skipped the town manager's report. I'm sorry.
You
I
did. I was about to say there, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Town Manager, let's run back to you. I apologize for that. I was not highlighting my my agenda the way I'm supposed to. I'll fix that now.
That's quite all right, Mr. Mayor. So a few things. It's good to remember that the National Hispanic Heritage Month continues until October 15th. And on COVID, I'd like to remind everyone to, as the weather starts cooling down, people spending more time inside, wear a mask, social distance, wash your hands frequently, and please get vaccinated. We are moving into the second month of the automated farmers market dollar program, and reports are it's going well in terms of transitioning to a paperless system. The public works staff will be distributing 10 leaf bags to each single family home in town. And they're going to start that the week of October 18th. This is a town effort to encourage people to sweep up and rake up their own leaves because we pay, the town pays Jetta Service to haul away yard waste. And if leaves are just swept to the curb, then we pay twice by having town staff then go around and clean up the leaves. So as you are able, it's good to try to bag up leaves. Additional leaf bags are available on the third Saturday of the month at 9 to 2 during the bulk trash pickup at Public Works. And that'll be through mid-January. We'll be making those leaf bags available. The compost bins have started to be distributed, and and we think we will have the distribution complete in the next week. And there were some names that were added, but any new names moving forward will have to be added to a wait list. The municipal center project is moving forward. You may have noticed the pod, little storage trailer thing we have down on Queensberry. That's to store some things that we don't have room for right now in Town Hall as we're preparing for the contractors to begin. Good to know that the roadway repair projects that we reviewed with the council some time ago, that invitation to bid is on the street, and we held a pre-bid meeting today. The bid submissions are due on October 22nd. October 28th is National First Responders Day, and good to keep in mind all the good work that our first responders at the police department and the volunteer fire department do. And new this year, we're putting together a Veterans Day video, and we are requesting pictures of veterans from our residents and staff and council to be included in this video day event, or Veterans Day event through a video. So, Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I'll take questions on that part of the report, and then I'll have one additional thing.
Thank you. Are there questions for the town manager? Looks like Councilmember Siddiq again has his hand up. Please speak.
Yes, I was wondering if your words on the bag could be included like in a piece of paper with the bags.
Yes.
One thing I've noticed when they distributed the trash cans, when I walk the dog, I would say roughly 1 in 10 people still have that blue bag attached to their trash can. Did not understand that that was supposed to be theirs. And so I'm wondering, are people getting these bags and wondering what are these bags? I better store them somewhere.
That's a very good point, sir. And Ms. Lewis, if you could work to make sure we incorporate that sort of outreach and communication.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Any additional questions for the town manager from his report? Okay, Mr. Town Manager, your last item.
Yes, my last item today, I wanted to take a moment to introduce Chief Morris before he says a few words on his pending retirement. Dave was, or Chief Morris was the first Riverdale Park employee that I met. And I was impressed with his passion and compassion for his staff and for the town and its residents. And personally, I just want to say thanks, Chief, and all the best in your retirement. And as discussed, if you want to take a few moments to address the council and the community. Chief?
Thanks, John, and to both John and to Mayor Thompson, affectionately known to me as Alan. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a few comments this evening. If I start mentioning names, I will surely forget someone, and I would certainly not want to offend. So to everyone on the call here this evening, I just want you to know that every one of you are very special to me. And as I look back over my life and my career, those who know me know that I openly profess my faith, and there's an overarching theme in my life, and that's to everything there is a season and a time to every purpose. And more simply put, that God does not make mistakes. To the community members that are on here this evening, and I will mention them by name because they're on the screen, and that's Liz and Corey and Laura. If there's others that are on here that I can't see, please forgive me, but thank you all for your continued support through these last 10 years. There's no greater responsibility, my humble opinion, in our society than that of civic responsibility. Translated, that generally means more work and sacrifice of our time and our talents. And so many in this community have time and again accepted this responsibility and worked tirelessly with their police department and our town staff to foster a safe community. It's really important for me to thank this community for entrusting me with the opportunity to serve as your chief of police. My time here serving this town and the town of Riverdale Park as your chief has been, frankly, the greatest and most rewarding experience of my 36-year career. I've had the opportunity to build many friendships with members of our community, and I'm confident that those friendships will last a lifetime. I especially want to thank the efforts of our Chiefs Community Advisory Council, and specifically Corey and Liz, who have been with me since the beginning of this effort. And as a result of the efforts of that council, there have been so many innovative community policing programs that have been implemented that engage with all the members of our diverse community. So to the Riverdale Park community, it's been an honor and a privilege to work with so many good people whose only desire is to make their community safe and an enjoyable place to live. Riverdale Park really is an amazing community, and I pray that I've served you all well as your chief of police. Mr. Mayor, and to the members of the council, listening to this evening's dialogue is so promising, because it's clear to me that our council is engaged. And I've seen this council change and transform tremendously over the last 10 years. And again, it's just so promising to listen to and hear the dialogue, because it clearly demonstrates the care that this council has for this community, and an appreciation for the position that you have been elected to serve in. You know, the success of this town is directly related to your hard work, to your continued guidance, to your forward thinking as elected officials. You're charged with making sound policy decisions. And again, I'm confident that that will continue. It's important, I think, also to recognize that we only succeed as staff if you, the mayor and the council, provide that opportunity for success. And the support of the staff leadership team enables us to create and develop a workforce that's befitting the service to this town. Last week, I submitted my formal letter of intent to retire to Mr. Lestitian, John. It was the most difficult letter that I've ever had to write. Many of you may know that many of you do know that I spent 26 years with the Prince George's County Police Department. The last 10 years of that 36-year career with the town of Riverdale Park. And as I shared with Alan when we spoke last week, it's been much more difficult to make this decision to retire from Riverdale Park than what it was to leave after 26 years with Prince George's County. Not that I didn't love the Prince George's County Police Department, but I truly love the town of Riverdale Park. Last week in my letter, I stated to John that throughout my 36-year career in law enforcement, I've had the pleasure of working with many professional and dedicated staff, both sworn and civilian. They pale in comparison to our staff here in Riverdale Park. I've been humbled to have worked with so many fine people in our town, all of whom I believe genuinely possess a servant's heart. They're motivated by not by self-interest or some sort of a self-serving agenda, but an agenda to serve. And it's my humble belief that our town has much of which to be proud. I do want to speak specifically to our leadership team here, our staff leadership team, John, Jessica, Paul, Gentry, Ivy, Ryan, and my assistant chief, Rosa. That's a small staff and we accomplish extraordinary work. I don't believe anything happens by accident, only through a lot of hard work and dedication. And it's been an absolute pleasure to work with each and every one of you. And I think it's important for our town to recognize the hard work of your senior staff leadership team. This staff, frankly, is a reflection of your collective vision as both the mayor and council, past and present council members. So thank you for your time and dedication in not only supporting your leadership team, but in working to make sure that we have the tools and the resources to be able to do what we need to do that benefits our community. I'm going to take a special pause here and say this in my comments. I've shared this with John a number of times, and I don't take this lightly, and I don't say this to embarrass John, but I've said before, God doesn't make mistakes. And I shared with the mayor last week that it's not what you don't know that will cause harm. It's often what we don't know that we don't know. And John was absolutely the right person at the right time for the job of town manager, because what we found after he got here, and he's often talked about, we pick up a rock and we never know what we're going to find under that rock, but we never put it back down. We don't hide it. We address whatever it is that we uncover and we fix those problems. So to the mayor and the council several years ago that took the giant leap forward in reforming the government of the town of Riverdale Park in such a way to bring on the quality staff, kudos for that decision. And John, I'll reinforce and reiterate again, God doesn't make mistakes. And sir, you are the right man for the job at the right time. So I want to thank you for your continued leadership and your friendship. I'd just like to offer a couple of words to the police department and the staff that may be listening in. I've greatly enjoyed every single moment that I've served as the chief of police for the town of Riverdale Park. I'll miss this agency, but more importantly, I'll miss its people immensely. Outside of my office on the wall hangs a picture of General Peter Pace. He's a 4-star general with the United States Marine Corps, formerly served as the chairman for the Joint Chiefs of Staff. In 2006, he offered some remarks to the graduating class of the Citadel. And I'm going to paraphrase some of what he said, because I think it's important for us in positions of leadership to never forget what our responsibility truly is. And in General Pace's comments, he says, take care of those in your charge. Do all in your power to understand what their needs are, and as best you can to provide for them. General Pace recognized that we're not going to be able to do everything, and we're not going to know everything. But if those that we lead know that we care, then they will want to give everything they can freely, and give far more than we could ever demand, simply if we do the right thing, and that is to take care of those that are in our charge. So to the police department, the men and women that work so hard to make me look good, I hope that I've lived up to that charge. Many years ago, a friend of mine told me that God gives us our life to use in service to others. And I firmly believe that's true. I've been blessed to spend my entire adult life in service to others. I joined the Navy at the age of 18. My after graduating high school, I sat down with my dad, and who I miss every day, and talked to him about what was next after graduating high school. And he said, you know, son, I can't afford to send you to college. You're going to have to figure it out on your own. So I joined the Navy, and I followed my dad's footsteps. He served in World War II. He quit high school at the age of 17. He was in the 9th grade. My dad wasn't a particularly educated man, but he was certainly a wise man. And I learned a lot from him, and I'll speak to that in a minute. But I had the opportunity to serve 4 years of active duty with the United States Navy and another 6 years of active reserves. Between that and my law enforcement career, I've got more than 40 years of service to this great nation and to our wonderful community. So I ask that each of my staff, sworn and civilian, remember as you go about your work why you took this job. And it's simply to make a difference in the lives of the people that we touch. I don't think there is any greater human obligation than this. In doing so, I challenge every department member and frankly, all of you that are listening this evening, both our mayor and council and our senior staff, our civilian staff and our members of our community to check your moral compass frequently. Many years ago, I read the book True North by Bill George. He speaks at length about the importance of this personal quality. And it's important to recognize that if we don't know who we are walking into a situation, then we may not like who we are when we're done. The time to decide who we are and what we will let ourselves do or become is not when things go awry. It's not when tragedy strikes or when anger ensues. It's before we get into that situation, so that we have that moral compass as an anchor on which to hold. I believe this applies in everything we do. And I'm always reminded to remember that it's not who's right, it's what's right. And I've always asked and will continue to reinforce to members of the Riverdale Park Police Department to always do what's right. I spoke briefly about my dad and the many life lessons that he instilled in me. My mom was the educated one of the parents, and she was there to help us with our homework and keep us straight. But my dad instilled many life lessons. But the one that, to me, that was most important, and the one that I always try to recall when I'm dealing with difficult situations, is that we all have value. We all have value. And I think it's an important lesson to keep in mind when we're interacting and interrelating with people that come from all walks of life and with all different experience. And I think it's especially important for our law enforcement community today when we're addressing the many issues within society, and remember that everyone brings their own life experience. Just keep in mind that we all have value. Just a couple of final thoughts, Mr. Mayor, if I may, and closing out just my comments. It's really been my goal as the police chief here to ensure that the Riverdale Park Police Department and its personnel were the best trained, best equipped, and best led police agency anywhere in the nation. I could not have done that without your support, Mr. Mayor, and the support of this council, the support of our senior staff team, and most importantly, the support of the men and women within the police department. You know, it's really, frankly, unreasonable to expect a police department or any service-oriented agency to deliver quality customer service if we don't first start by hiring quality employees. So if there's one professional accomplishment that I hope that I leave as a legacy, that we, the mayor, the council, the town staff, the police command staff collectively, is that we've developed an organizational culture that invests seriously in professional development. Organizations change. They undertake new projects to improve performance and to grow. It's just a basic study of organizational management. but it's not really the organizations that's changed. It's the people that in them that alter how they do their jobs and adapt to new strategies and projects and initiatives. And I think change is critical to the success of any organization. And it's that change that we're about to embrace here this evening. We as a department have spent the last 10 years engaged in continuous leadership training. We've directed it towards approaching increasingly complex and high-risk problems with an emphasis on learning to seek solutions that develop our people and create organizational learning so that we strengthen the department, most importantly, while serving our community. I think a steadfast and resolute organization is defined by its leadership's knowledge and experience in developing those critical skills within the organization that, as John would say, achieve ethical, efficient, and effective outcomes. That's 3 of our 5 E's, John. Likewise, I think succession is critical to the organization's lifeblood. And while I leave Riverdale Park, I do so completely confident that the men and women of this department, under the leadership of a professionally developed command staff that possess the education and experience to carry on the good work of this department, will continue to even greater heights. Just one final thought, and this is for my family. My decision to retire as chief and to leave a 36-year career in law enforcement isn't easy, but my career was not easy on my family either. And this decision is really about them. The shift work, the weekends, the call outs, the holidays, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the vacations that I've missed or cut short because duty called. I've spent at least 26 of my 36 years tied to what I affectionately refer to as PGPDs, or the Riverdale Park Police Department's form of home detention. It's called a pager and a cell phone, but it takes a toll on a family. Many years ago, when I was still with the Prince George County Police Department, my captain, Steve Long, I was in special operations, and we were at an event, and Captain Long said to my wife, hey, Kathy, thank you for sharing Dave and letting him come out and play on these barricades and hostage situations and raids and so forth. And I'll never forget my wife's comment. She looked right at my captain and said, I would love to flush that cell phone right down the toilet. Steve laughed and said, I would agree with that. My wife and I met when I was in the Navy, so she understands the commitment that I've made, not only in my service to the Navy, but to the police department. She too has lived this life with me. She's seen me at my best, and she's taken me at my worst. She and my family have seen me torn apart by the tragedies I've witnessed, things that I'll never be able to forget, but they've always been there for me. So it's my turn to be there for them. So this is a new chapter. It's a new season that gives me the opportunity that I see as just another blessing. And as I said before, knowing that God doesn't make mistakes. So, Mr. Mayor, thank you for giving me these few minutes this evening to share some thoughts. I wish everyone well, be safe, and Godspeed. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief Morris. And I will just say that I think both of us share a goal in what we do and the time we have on this earth, which is to leave the world and our community a better place. And your leadership, your devotion to the job, your devotion to your staff, your devotion to the residents of the town are exemplary. And you have left us in really good shape, and you will not be forgotten. You will not your memory will linger both in the strength of the organization and in the individuals you have touched. And so I just want to thank you for your many years of devoted service and immense leadership, because during this time, I've seen so many, as you said, the strengthening of the professionalism of the staff, the knowledge of the staff, the ability of the staff to respond to conflicts, to new issues. And I feel like during your time, we've always been ahead of the curve. You know, whenever something happens, then we've been working on it. We've been getting things ready in the background, anticipating that might happen, and we've been ready for it. And that's largely due to your vision, to your sense of understanding what's around the corner, what's around the bend that might threaten us. So thank you again for your 10 years of service. And I hope that we can get together and go fishing a little bit after your retirement is complete. Thank you.
Well, we'd have to include Ivy in that because she loves to fish as well. So
Listen,
Sounds
if there's
great.
a fishing trip and I'm not invited, we're gonna have problems.
Okay. Wow. Thank you, Mr. Chief Morris. And thank you, Mr. Lustician, for the introduction. Okay, let's move on. We've still got some items on the agenda this evening. And I will pick it up again where we should have been. Mr. Town Manager, I did not receive a fire department report. Did staff receive one? No.
No, sir.
I know that they are very busy with dealing with COVID restrictions and the all of the issues surrounding that. That brings us to council, committee, and board reports. Mr. Sadiq, do you have a question for the town manager before we go to council, committee, board reports?
I was going to say that the fire department knew they had to follow up from Chief Morris and said, we can't do that.
Good point. Good point. Okay, council, committee, and ward reports. And for the very first time in a formal legislative session, Councilmember Smith, do you have a board report?
Yes, I do, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I want to thank you for the time that we spent on the phone last week. It was 2.5 hours, and I'm not ashamed to say it felt like a lot shorter. It was very informative. And since that time, as I think about the things we've talked about, I have, of course, a bunch more questions. So I look forward to chatting with you about that. So thank you for that time, Mr. Mayor. And Chief Morris, I want to thank you for your kind words to the council. I think I'm sort of included in those by default, but I look forward to hopefully living up to them in my tenure as council. And thank you for your service to the town. And when I was in the Army, there was a joke we had about how the highest rank in the military is civilian, because then nobody can tell you what to do. Your wife might argue with that now, but I just want to say enjoy your promotion to civilian, and look forward to addressing you as Mr. Morris, as I hope you look forward to being addressed as such. So thank you again. And then just lastly, I want to ensure that everyone here is aware that today is National Noodle Day. So happy National Noodle Day to all those who observe. If you're looking to observe, I would encourage you to visit Banana Blossom Bistro in Ward 1, owned by Annie and Phil, former Riverdale Park residents. They want to run a great place. And just in generally, as we, hopefully this time, I know a lot of us thought it earlier this year, but really begin to emerge from the pandemic as we get vaccines available for younger children, and the Delta variant wave starts to recede, that we'll all remember to patron our local small businesses and local restaurants, particularly, who have been hit so hard. I know in my ward, there are a handful of small businesses that, opened in the days just before the pandemic and have managed to weather it and stay in business. And we want to continue to keep them here, because our locally owned small businesses are a huge part about what gives the town that we love the character that brought us here or welcomed us here, as if you're a longtime resident. And that's all I have. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Smith. Councilmember Foe.
Good evening, everybody. Chief Morris, I don't even know where to begin. I don't think that I have ever had a relationship so close with a police officer prior to that moment, probably because in my youth, I was trying to avoid police officers. But
So was I, council member.
what amazes me about you, sir, is I can remember my early days in council. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, didn't know what the heck was going on. I was trying to crack a joke, and here I am, this first year elected, and here you are. You've been chief of the town for 5 or 6 years at that point, and you've been in county police for how many years prior to that? You said 36 total, right? And you just treated me with the utmost respect. And like, as a young council member, feeling like you deserve to sit at that table is a little bit overpowering at times. And just the honesty that we've had in dialogues and our ability to communicate back and forth and your availability has just been truly remarkable. Like it's like one of those things that I can brag about and say, I can text the chief if you want me to. And I just have loved so much what you've brought to our community, your approachability, your desire to see proper policing. Like you've put the job on the pedestal that it deserves to be. And I'm completely thankful that we got you for 10 years here. Frankly, I thought you were going to be one of those guys that held on for way too long. You know what I mean? I never saw you giving it up. So I, as a public servant, I love when I see people, cash in their chips and say, I'm ready to enjoy my life, because you, sir, have paid your dues. And I am just so excited for you and your family, and your opportunity to relax a little, because I know how much you've committed to this life. Sir, you've earned it, and we are all grateful, but I am tremendously happy for you for what exists. My father speaks about retirement as it is the greatest thing in the world. And I hope that is your experience as well, sir. Thank you so much. All right. So what else do I have to say? Let me think. This week on Tuesday, I had a meeting with Delegate Alonzo Washington. And I just wanted to talk about some things that we have going on in the town. So where I land with Delegate Washington is our park situation that we have going on. You've heard me talk about it a lot here recently. I believe, and it only exacerbated even worse this weekend. I go into Montgomery County to hike, and you see some of the MNC PPC parks there, and they are remarkably well situated. And I would just like to see that kind of attention to detail applied to our parks as well. We have some incredible park space. I would like to see amenities that could be utilized throughout the entire year. And I'm going to continue to try to talk to all electeds, to anybody running elections, that I think we can do better for our residents here. And this isn't just a Ward 2 issue. I know some of the park spaces Ward 2, but every one of our residents can utilize these spaces. And I think this would be something that we should push forward as a council, as a town staff. Let's actually put the park back in Riverdale parks, not just baseball fields. On that note, talking to Delegate Washington, he said some incredibly complimentary things about staff and our response to this pandemic. And I just thought, echoing Chief's sentiments earlier, that it is good to recognize who butters your bread. And I think staff, you make us all look so good. I just am appreciative of that. Delegate Washington expressed a desire to come to our farmers market to see what's going on. And I think in line with our discussions about potential changes that occur in town center, I think the town inviting him and all electeds just to see what we've got going on there and to brag about some of our programs. I listen, I'll brag if I have to. It's not above me. I can do that on behalf of the town. I think it would be good to get other electeds into that town center space to see what we envision and see who we can bring on this ride for the improvements in our town. Last but not least, I have been seeking some updates on the Field of Dreams project. There have been potential discussions, but I know that they have hit a wall recently and town staff hasn't received any new information. Is that still the case, Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, sir. And all we're waiting for is final verification of the grant award.
Okay.
And-
And I listen, I wouldn't want my residents to think that I'm not talking about Field of Dreams. I am excited about what we have for that space. And I look forward to the dialogue as we move forward. Oh, one final note. Lafayette Avenue. As I walk down Lafayette towards Riverdale Park Station, or the town of Riverdale Park. What is it, Mr. Liston? The town of Riverdale Park at Riverdale Park Station?
Yes.
I think
yes.
that's what you meant. I just that street is continuously problematic for my residents. And I think we need to have some long-term planning. I think that the stop signs, the way that they are, almost encourage bad behavior. Whenever my wife and I and son walk on it, you just see people abusing the stop signs and in some places ignoring them altogether. And when I walk down that road, I only envision 2 new large-scale buildings being built at the end of the bridge, and then imagine what kind of congestion that's going to bring into Ward 2 as well after the fact. So I look forward to discussions about what we can do in that space to make it more, 1, commuter friendly or pedestrian friendly, and 2, be ready to prepare for a higher volume of cars. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to everyone who have joined this Zoom meeting out there. I'll be brief on the announcement for the CCAR CDC. The board meeting will be tomorrow evening from 5:30 to 7:30 via Zoom. Call instructions can be found at the website ccarcdc.org. I would discuss what would be on the agenda for tomorrow's meeting, yet that has yet to been released. So your guess is as good as mine as to what will be discussed. I know as of late, what has been the meetings have discussed overhaul of charter and the bylaws, as well as essentially getting things in place in terms of ethics standards for board members. There's also been discussion of moving forward with the Sarvis Empowerment Cafe. I know the CDC has been in touch with staff about an event coming up on October 9th at the CDC. Again, you can find out more about that at their website, CCAR, that's CKAR, cdc.org. With what I'm hearing tonight, I'm glad to see that I no longer have a monopoly on shameless promotion. And I think that's a good sign. I think there's a lot that we have in this community that we can be proud of in terms of both staff that is committed to working here and helping serve this community, as well as the amenities that have evolved here in town. And I look forward to seeing that growing and developing even more. And I would encourage residents who have ideas, please let us know, let staff know. Let's see how we can make that possibly come to fruition. And speaking of service, I would have to say it has been a great honor in serving on this council to be able to work with Chief David Morris these past 10 years. A lot of what we see in this department has been his efforts, continuing off those efforts of former Chief Teresa Chambers, and what he has done and developed and evolved with the department over there, and even throughout the community, has been something that is really a credit to him and to the staff that he's led over there. This is a much, much different police department than the one that was here 16 years ago when I came onto this council. And it's efforts like that that makes me proud to say that, you know, I live in Riverdale Park. And it makes me proud to say, to point out to folks, as we hear reports on the news about departments in various places looking at, you know, facing possible substantial staffing shortages, that this department, with the swearing in of an officer over the summer, is now a department that is fully staffed, and that it is one of 2 departments in the state of Maryland that are fully staffed. And that is a credit to what has been created in terms of the culture of that department, in terms of the perception of that department among other officers, both currently serving and those coming in and wanting to serve as police officers, with the efforts that Chief Morris and the staff over there have put forward in terms of development and in terms of taking in officers and developing quality officers through and through, professional officers through and through. Yes, there have been times we've had to address officers that were falling short of that. But the fact is that it was addressed, and it was addressed earnestly to the extent that it could be, to where either the officer improved or the officer was no longer with the department. And that is a credit to this department. And I think that is something that officers anywhere respect greatly about a department. And I want to congratulate him and the staff there for striving to develop that culture over there. Chief, you will be missed. Yet there's probably much that you have shared with us and with your staff that's going to keep ringing in their ears in the years to come, be that as officers or be that, you know, as a person. And I wish you well, and I wish your family well. I hope you get to spend a lot of time with them grandkids, as much time as you can, because it is well deserved. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much on behalf of this resident and those that I represent in my ward in this town.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Councilmember Siddiq.
First of all, I'd like to start off with Chief Morris. Thank you for your service. I didn't have much time to work with you, although I've met with you several times. I'd like to give you a piece of advice. You could work on your retirement smile. And I have nothing further to report.
Thank you, Councilmember Sadiq. The other two council members, as we've discussed, are absent, so we can move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments on non-agenda items and consent agenda items. Are there any public comments?
Sorry, Mayor, this is Corey. I couldn't raise my hand here.
That's fine. Please speak up.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to also kind of second everyone's comments regarding Chief Morris and his retirement. 5 years, or let's see, in 2014, I think I took my first community walk, and I, out of nowhere, decided I was going to ask Chief Morris about the Michael Brown shooting and talk about jumping into the deep end of the pool. But Chief Morris answered all my questions, and that basically kicked off a 5-year stint of me asking him tons of questions and him very patiently answering them all and sharing all of his knowledge and experience with me, as well as to the other members of the community and the CCAC. So I just wanted to thank him for all that time that he spent with us. I never felt like I was bothering him or any of his executive staff that he made available to us. You know, it was just a great experience for me, a great learning experience, and I really appreciate him taking the time to do that. And I think it made a huge difference in the town. So Chief Morris, thank you so much for your time, and I hope that you really enjoy your retirement.
Thank you, Corey.
And then on a much lighter note, I also had a question for the council members, and maybe Director Ivy or Director Lewis. In some discussions we had, I heard that there was a tree assessment and inventory that was going to happen, and I just wanted to ask some questions about that. I don't know if anyone's prepared to answer any questions about that. I can ask them, or we can reschedule or something.
Ms. Lewis?
I welcome your question.
Okay. So I was just wondering what kind of information is the town going to gather with this assessment and inventory? And then how is the town going to be using that information going forward?
I'll answer the second part first. A key objective of that inventory is to identify where we need to put in extra effort into maintaining trees, where we might have to remove a tree, and where there might be areas that are exhibiting problems with trees. So it helps us to develop a maintenance program over 1, 2, 3 years. I think in the past, the town has conducted this inventory every 2 years. We're actually in the 3rd year. The last one was done in 2019. And so for the next one, we are looking forward to doing a 1, 2, 3, maybe 4-year maintenance program, anticipating that within that time frame, there would be another update, but to try to look out as far as we can with the additional information we collect with the next inventory on the amount of work that we need to do to maintain our trees. About 6 months ago, myself and the operations manager and one of the crew members who is certified in tree maintenance identified additional information we'd want to collect in the next one. The basic information is obviously the species of tree, the size, its overall condition. We'd like to add to that some environmental information, for example, whether or not the tree is located under a power line, whether there's an existing sidewalk, some of the other characteristics of the environment where that tree is located. I actually have a meeting tomorrow with staff from the planning department to talk about how the town might get funding for the next inventory through the planning assistance to municipalities and communities program. We don't have all of the funding we need in this year's budget, and so that program will help supplement the amount of money we have to do a more expansive inventory. And we'd like to make this inventory available to the public, and so have a product that's more user-friendly than what we've produced in the past.
Oh, excellent. I think the public transparency there would be welcome.
We'd like to do a database. Let's see if the fund will help us get there, but otherwise it'll be a report that's a little more user-friendly than the Excel spreadsheet we currently have.
Okay. And with the, is there a plan with the town to create or is there plans for the town to create a plan that would help or would whose purpose would be to, replace these Bradford pears? Like, is there a desire within the town to try to replace them, or is it just going to be as they need to be taken down due to age or condition, then they'll be taken down?
Actually had a plan in place to remove, I believe, 5 to 10 of them a year. I actually had discussions with my counterparts in nearby jurisdictions, and they would advise against that. Certainly do a better job in maintaining an up-to-date assessment of the condition of those trees. Pepco has done a lot of extensive pruning on them and not left us much to work with. And so I believe there needs to be a program to remove them, but very strategically. And I'm not sure we need to continue the program of total removal of all the Bradford pears. It really is, it should be based on what condition they're in, where they're located, what the environment is like, where they're located. So a little more strategic in how we approach a removal program.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think the Bradford pears have their own removal program that we just participate in.
Plus Petco, and it might take care of itself over time.
Exactly. I see that Alex Hurdle has his hand up. Would you like to speak, Mr. Hurdle?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I was informed tonight at 5:45 p.m. that the chief would be giving his resignation and announcing his retirement tonight. And Chief Morris, I just want to say thank you so much for helping me and my family and in the challenges that we've had in our neighborhood and particularly behind our street. You were very instrumental in getting that problem pretty much resolved. And I will say that things are much quieter around our house. I absolutely appreciate and respect your dedication, your staying on this matter, and the ability to talk with me and my family about how we can get this taken care of. Willow, and we have a little here that wants to say something to you also.
Thank you for all you've done, Chief. I want to be a police officer.
Willow, you are an absolute sweetheart, and you're why I do what I do. So, Mr. Hurdle, thank you for your kind words, and especially thank you for allowing me to be part of your family's life and to be able to recruit the next generation of Riverdale Park police officers, starting with Willow. She already has her uniform attire, I believe, at least it's the shirt.
All right. Well, have a great retirement. Please stay in touch. I've got your phone number and email, and we'll be in touch time to time, let you know of both our town's progress as well as my daughter's progress in becoming an officer. So again, thank you so much, and enjoy your retirement in good rest.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, are there any additional public comments? That was amazing. Okay, let's move on to the consent agenda. Next item on the agenda. This is an item which is not debated, so we simply have a motion and a second and then a vote. So may I please have a motion to approve the consent agenda item?
So moved.
Second.
I believe that Councilmember Smith was the second. Councilmember Foe was the motion. Say that in the wrong order, but
Somebody beat me to it. Wasn't me.
must have been Councilmember Siddiq then.
Yeah.
Okay. So motion has been and second have been made. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq. And I abstain. The motion passes 401. Thank you. Let's move on to legislative action items. Item number 1, ordinance 2021-OR-08. May I please have a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-OR-08 regarding amendment to the fiscal year 2022 budget related to the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA funding.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance 2021-OR-08, a budget amendment of the FY 2022 budget for the purpose of amending the adopted operating and capital budgets for the town of Riverdale Park in the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2021, ending July 30, 2022, to recognize American Rescue Plan Act, also known as ARPA, grant revenues, and to appropriate such grant funds to the town's Economic Recovery Strategy Fund, the ERSF, and generally related to the amendment of the town's FY 2022 operating and capital budget.
Second.
I wasn't watching. Who got the second there? Councilman Lingua made the motion. Who was-
Councilmember Siddiq.
He was waiting with a live mic, I think, on that one. So we have a motion and a second to adopt ordinance 2021-OR-08. Is there any discussion of this ordinance? Are there any public comments on this, the adoption of this ordinance? It's a quiet evening now. Okay, so I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 401. Thank you very much. Next item on the legislative action items on the agenda is the introduction of ordinance 2021-OR-09 regarding the town personnel manual and mandatory vaccinations. An introduction of an ordinance is simply an introduction. There's not a motion or a second or a vote. It's just an introduction. So would any council person like to introduce ordinance 2021-OR-09?
I would, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Foe.
Sorry, emerging from the dark. I would like to introduce this ordinance pertaining to the town personnel personal manual mandating vaccinations for our employees. The purpose of adding new section 06 to the town of Riverdale Park personnel manual is to require certain town employees to obtain vaccinations against certain diseases as a condition of employment and fitness for duty, with certain exceptions and generally relating to revisions to the town personnel manual.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. That is now duly introduced, and all members of the council should try to discuss this with your constituents if you think that there are concerns in the community. Okay, that brings us to item 3, a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with ENR Services for an amount not to exceed $109,684 for 48th Avenue sidewalk project. Would someone like to make that motion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to make a motion to authorize the town manager to enter into an agreement with E&R Services for an amount not to exceed $109,684 for the 48th Avenue sidewalk project.
Is there a second to the motion? Second motion was made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Siddiq. Is there discussion of this motion?
Mr. Mayor, I know we discussed substantially this project, not only at the last work session, but at previous work sessions, and I believe some during budget hearings in April. where essentially this is a project with a $200,000 budget, of which 155,000 is being funded through a community development block grant, and the balance would be coming from the town's capital improvement program fund. My understanding is we're looking at an estimated cost of right around 185,000, which is will cover engineering and construction costs, as well as cost of removing 2 trees, which could not be saved. I could go on, but I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. Is there additional council discussion of this motion?
Yes, Your Honor. I just, I know, did I call you Your Honor, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
It's very polite, no,
Honor.
as long as I've been on council, we've been talking about this. And as long as I've been on council, Councilman Lingua has been hoping for this for his residents. And anytime I see something about 48th Avenue and potential storm water management issues that help plague some of his residents at the bottom of that street, I just get excited about this project. So it's exciting to see this project moving forward.
I agree. Additional council comments on this motion?
Well, I know this is more been an impetus from residents in that area, and I'm just glad to see this moving forward.
Mr. Town Manager, can you comment on the selection of the, or have staff comment on the selection of the vendor?
Yes, I will ask Ms. Lewis. Director Lewis, can you speak to that, please?
Sure. Good evening again. We received 11 bids for this project, and the Taylor Road project that was also included in the bid. That's the highest number of bids that we've received since I joined the town almost 3 years ago. It was quite impressive. We, in fact, could have had 2 additional ones, but those bids came in late. The bids ranged from $61,446 to a high of $194,680, and that's just for the installation of the sidewalk. Our engineer's estimate was around $113,000 for the project. That estimate was generated probably August 2020. ENR Services was determined to have the lowest responsible bid. And they have a good track record with the town. They completed the Field of Dreams sidewalk in 2020 and sidewalk improvements throughout Madison Hill earlier this year. Both projects were completed within budget and on schedule. And the company really delivered some quality products and provided great customer service on both projects. Any specific questions other than that regarding the bids?
No, thank you very much. That answers my questions. I appreciate that.
The only thing I would add, Mr. Mayor, because we did present them together last week, and Ms. Lewis just mentioned it, the Taylor Road project, those bids came in under $20,000. And so awarding that contract does not require council approval, and that's why it's not on the agenda. But Ms. Lewis, that is the same company who's going to be doing the Taylor Road.
Absolutely. They had the most responsive bid in that case as well. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Thank you. Any additional council comments or questions on this motion? Any public comments? I miss being able to look up and down the dais to see if anybody's thinking about making a comment, but maybe sometime we'll be back there sometime soon. Okay. I also used to looking out at the members of the public and seeing if anybody's standing up to walk to the microphone. It's all difficult in this environment. Okay. No other questions or comments. Let's go ahead and move to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith. I hope that was an aye. Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe. Great.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Okay, the last item, I think we should honestly have a little discussion before we have a motion. There are several items that we can choose from. Mr. Town Manager, is there a staff presentation and discussion?
Ms. Barnes, if you can kind of review these, and we may have other members of the team join in depending on the item.
Certainly. On September the 22nd, the town received an email from the Prince George's County Municipal Association and county legislation that they'd like to consider for the upcoming General Assembly session. And at that time, the mayor and council had a discussion at the last work session, and staff suggested that we could go back and come up with some ideas. And staff met last week, and we had a brainstorming session, if you will, and came up with a list of potential ideas for things that the mayor and council may want to consider recommending to PGCMA. The first item that came up was county legislation to establish inclusionary zoning. The second item that came up was state legislation to authorize municipalities to implement stop sign cameras, automated enforcement. That comes from resident recommendations in Ward 2, actually. State legislation to mandate glass and plastic bottle and aluminum can deposits and refunds. State or county legislation to establish a fee for the use of plastic bags, similar to what's been implemented in Howard County, and there's a link to their program. And state legislation regarding maintenance and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. So that's a staff wish list, if you will, of things we'd love to see happen, that we know that the community would be supportive of as well. Open for discussion by the mayor and council.
Thank you, Director Barnes. So, council, what do you think? Is somebody ready to make a motion, or do we want to discuss whether we want to down select from this list or want to go with the whole list? What are people's thoughts?
Mr. Thompson, I believe that all great ideas come from Ward 2, don't you?
I think that there are great ideas that have come from other wards. But Ward 2 is a wellspring of great ideas, no question.
Yeah, they're almost as good as the ones that come from Ward 3.
You knew it was coming.
Councilmember Sadiq, you have your hand up.
Can you define inclusionary zoning?
So I'll take a shot, and then Ms. Lewis, who worked in planning for a while, and Ryan, if you want to supplement. So inclusionary zoning is, it addresses low to mod income families. And Montgomery County at one point was known as kind of the mother of inclusionary zoning, first adopting it in 1974. So it's more like the great grandmother at this point, or at least the grandmother of inclusionary zoning. And what it provides for is when there's new development, a percent of the units have to be for low to mod income residents. You, through inclusionary zoning, can also develop moderately priced dwelling unit programs where, so if it's apartments or single family homes, the cost for those are reduced to the end user, and it's typically done through covenants on the property. It's important to note that if you're going to have inclusionary zoning, it's good to require the same level of finish, and that you don't establish poor buildings. So it's not like we take the low to mod income units and put them in a separate building or things of that nature. But it's a best practice for housing and for development of a diverse community. The district also has a inclusionary zoning requirement.
And so I'll say I disagree. or rather radically. I'll take this offline. My second question is, state legislation to mandate glass and plastic bottle aluminum can deposit / refund. That sounds like a pretty big ask.
Councilman Siddiq, I would say a lot of these are pretty big asks. That's why they're more a kind of a jumping off point. In the legislative arena, most things don't happen in 1 year. This is an election year. There's going to be a ton of legislation that's going to be considered. So these are kind of our wish list and maybe some places where we can start. PGCMA can start working on moving forward with some of this stuff.
Thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, I had a question about the, first of all, most of these things I enthusiastically support, particularly the inclusionary zoning idea here, and the sidewalks, but everything short of the stop sign cameras. In my day job, in a past day job, I did a lot of work around these and other municipal and small or local government contracts, but specifically around red light contracts. I would assume we're not planning to, if this were to be made available, we wouldn't do this in-house. That would be vended. Pretty much all of the vendors that supply red light cameras, stop sign cameras, speed cameras, whatnot, are known to engage in extremely predatory behavior towards citizens and governments, particularly our budgets and our citizens' tax dollars. These contracts often come with, require no one will bid. These companies won't bid on the contract to implement this unless they get a 10, 20 something year long contract. That's kind of absurd. They sneak little clauses in there that say that the contract can't be canceled for delivery of services. They don't guarantee what's the term? Cost savings for the local governments. Trying to think of all the other bad things these folks do. Oftentimes the fines that result from this fall on those least able to pay them. And generally anywhere where you see a municipality using camera-based traffic enforcement, it's not working out well for pretty much anyone, including the town's budget. So that's my thoughts there.
Interesting perspective. I actually feel like yes, please go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you. And I think you're wasted over at NIST. I think you'd be great at the State Department. On this list, I think that paring it down to 3 items would help focus the choice. For me, I think the 3 ones that could have a great broader impact throughout the state and communities would be the idea of county legislation to establish inclusionary zoning, the one on state legislation to mandate glass and plastic bottle, aluminum can deposit and refunds, as well as the state legislation regarding maintenance and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. I have gone to school in states that have had refunds, had refund programs, and I watched them work fine. There's a start to it, but once it gets going, it's something that people adapt to, and then you start seeing a lot less stuff, a lot less glass and bottles in trash receptacles than you will see just getting put back into a recycling stream. And it's something that has benefited those places that I've been in seeing that. I think on the point about speed cameras, I think the programs that we've had over the past, gosh, now, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it's over the past 10 years, cameras that we've had at Taylor and East West Highway, as well as up on Good Luck Road, even the one that we have right out on Riverdale Road near the elementary school, in the sense that how we've been able to approach it and plan for it and budget for it. I've not seen it be a detriment in any way. Granted, there was a red light camera program that was set up previously that estimates on its revenue were very optimistic and didn't come to fruition. And in that sense, yes, it can be problematic. I think approached properly and a contract managed well by capable people within a department, I think it's an effective tool. And I think it's been an effective tool here. So just to repeat, I think really the top three that we should be putting forward are the inclusionary zoning, the bottle can program, and state highway sidewalks. State roadway sidewalks, excuse me.
Councilmember Foe.
Good evening, everyone. I'm looking at this list and it's great. I love actually I would prefer to see something more strict on the state or county legislation to establish a fee for the use of plastic bags. It's harder and harder to get rid of plastic anymore. Like I drive around, occasionally you can find a Home Depot that has plastic bag drop-offs, but they've stopped doing it a lot locally. When we were in Hawaii, it's not applicable because of the impact it has on the coral reef. And I just thought, like, well, wow, I know now that I'm not going to be able to get plastic bags or even paper bags. So I have to, make a plan for this. And I would just like to see something locally in our community that's stopping this problem. Something I don't like this is, I know this has to go out, but I think something that we should be talking about a little bit more as it pertains to county legislation is, and I'd like the council to take a deeper look into accessory dwelling units. With the development that is going on here, we certainly have already started to see gentrification, and we're only going to go see more as we go into this. There's a lot of incredible properties in Riverdale Park where perhaps a rental might allow some additional income to come into homes where these taxes are going to be a little bit more out of reach. I recognize a host of problems that come into that. I just think for future discussions to add to this list, potentially, we might want to be able to consider pushing a county to loosen their grip on accessory dwelling units. And that's my only thoughts.
I will jump in and say that your wish has actually come true. It's actually accessory dwelling units are loosened up in the past a couple of years ago zoning ordinance, and it's just a matter of implementation whenever they get that out the door. So
thank you. Good to know.
So that's I thought you'd be happy about that. Okay, so we have some disagreement on the council about which items to include and which ones not. And so would someone like to make a motion? Actually, I would like to make one comment or a question for staff, which is the last bullet, the state legislation regarding maintenance and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. Do we want to add construction to that list? Since we have, especially on East-West Highway, some major sections that don't have a sidewalk, and we've had enough pedestrian deaths along there that I think we would like to see some sidewalks there.
From a staff perspective, we think that would be a good addition. Where this idea came from, Mr. Mayor, was the issue that you and I had discussed some time ago under current state code, where if a state improves sidewalks in certain areas, they hand over the responsibility for the maintenance and replacement of those sidewalks. And it's something that actually would impact all municipalities that are faced with that. And it could be a substantial burden, if you will.
I remember the issue very well, and I knew that that this was addressing that, but I thought that as long as we're talking about sidewalks along state highways, we should go for this. So, okay, so that's my only comment. So how do we want to move forward with a motion? Because we're already late with our list and we have to pass something this evening. So who would like to make a motion?
I would just like to say, one of my things I like to follow as a policy guide is housing. Inclusionary zoning is a terrible idea. Don't ever do that. The studies agree, don't ever do that. Terrible idea, don't ever do that.
Could you explain a little more, please?
Literally what the studies show, and I'd love to have some time to put this together to send an email. But if you got to do it right now, I'm telling you, if you want to build capacity, you've got one choice. Build capacity. Do not put restrictions on that. As you build luxury apartments, people buy luxury apartments, move out of not luxury apartments. Those not luxury apartments get filled by people who used to live in sub-luxury apartments, and so on and so on. That chain goes on. Build capacity, period, dot, end of story. This isn't even debatable. It's what this research shows. But I don't have time to pull those research together for you right now. I can email it to you later. Like I said, it's one of my pet stories.
Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, is it possible to vote on these individual items individually, or do we need to vote as a group?
We can, there are plenty of ways that we can vote on them individually. So we could, you could make a motion to ask, I presume the town staff is going to fill this out on behalf of the council. Is that correct?
Yes, Director Barnes will coordinate this depending on the direction of the council.
So we could have 5 separate motions and votes, or we could have a group of 3 and then 2 individuals. We could have it any way we want. So feel free, make a motion.
So if there's no, it seems like we have 3 items here that we have consensus on. So I'll make a motion. I apologize, my first motion here, if I don't get the language right, to approve the items on, sorry, my eyes are giving up here. Glass and bottle deposits and refunds, fee for the use of plastic bags, and maintenance and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. Or do I need to actually say the language here?
You don't have to say the language, just say the 3 bullets that were mentioned. And may I ask as a friendly amendment to add construction to maintenance and replacement of sidewalks?
Would be a friendly amendment, yes.
Is there a second to the motion?
Seconded.
Second.
I think Aaron got that one. So motion.
I just want to take time out and say that's an impressive motion, Councilman. It's not easy to do, and I was very good job.
So a motion by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there any discussion of the motion?
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Do we need to, how does the amendment, that you offered work? Do we need to add that amendment, or is it added based on your
So,
motion?
so a friendly amendment can occur very early in the process, basically before ideally before a second, but immediately afterwards. And as long as it's agreed to by the maker and by the seconder, then you don't have to have a formal vote at that point. If you've already had discussion, if you've gotten into the meat of it, then you need to have a formal amendment. Although we're pretty loose with the friendly amendments here because we're a small council. If you have 750 people that you're then it's hard to have a friendly amendment there, but we're a little bit loose here. Those are the small assembly rules and subset of the rules in Robert's Order. Okay, any other discussion?
No, Mr. Mayor, I believe that this is the best of both worlds. I believe the council member from Ward 2 or Ward 3 wanted to see a shorter list. And I believe that Councilmember Smith and Councilmember Siddiq have some concerns about 2 of these. So I feel like this is our best bet moving forward.
Okay, well, there may be more motions coming. We can't, that's part of the goal of the assembly is to make motions when you want to see something happen. Okay, any public comments? Okay, let's do a roll call.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make an amendment.
Yes, sir.
To the bullet point regarding state and county legislation to establish a fee for use of plastic bags. I would like to strike establish a fee for and replace it with the word eliminate. That's my amendment.
Excuse me. Eliminate. So it would read state or county
strike
legislation to
establish the fee for and replace it with the word eliminate.
So it would read state or county legislation to eliminate the use of plastic bags.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second to the motion to amend?
Seconded.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to amend the statement to strike, establish a fee, and replace that with the word eliminate, establish a fee for and replace that with the word eliminate. Any discussion?
Mayor?
Councilmember Siddiq.
Do we seriously want to replace plastic bags with the more environmentally degrading paper bags? I ask you.
How is a paper bag environmentally degrading, being that it's made of trees?
Because, newsflash, it's made of trees.
And it's also recyclable, more so than plastic bags are.
I mean, these are the kind of things we shouldn't discuss in public.
Why not?
The research is clear. You're cutting down trees to make bags, which is worse for the environment than making plastic bags. I'm sorry, it's the way it is.
I disagree.
I concur you disagree. Should not be discussed online, should not be decided right now. But the fact of the matter is, it should be discussed.
Well, I mean, this is what we're here for. And it's, if we're going to disagree on that point, we're going to disagree on that point. It's just, the amendment stands. So we'll put it to the vote to the rest of the council and see what they say.
Is there additional discussion of the amendment?
Mr. Mayor?
Councilmember Smith.
I appreciate Councilmember Lingwa's amendment, and I am on board. It's friendly in spirit. I wonder though if we could, instead of eliminating the fee, have eliminate, or I'm sorry, instead of eliminating the language of establish a fee, if we could have eliminate or establish a fee there. Because while I'm in spirit in favor of eliminating the bags, I'm not entirely confident that our state and county legislative counterparts would be completely on board with that. But in the absence of eliminating the bags altogether, a fee would be nice.
So you are suggesting that as a friendly amendment to actually just
Amendment to the
insert.
amendment, yes.
Yeah, a friendly amendment to an amendment is, we can still conceivably go there. So when we get too deep into amendment land, you actually run into a limit of how many little deep you can go. I believe that number is 3. So, and I would look at it if someone got that deep. I would look it up in my nice copy of Robert's Rules here to be sure, because I don't think we've done that before. But anyway, your suggestion is that the current amendment have a friendly amendment to it, which is state or county legislation to eliminate or establish a fee for the use of plastic bags. So it'd just be inserting the word eliminate in front of to establish or to eliminate.
Eliminate or, correct.
What do the maker and the seconder of who made the motion? That was Councilmember Lingua made the motion and seconded by Councilmember Foe. So Councilmember Lingua, do you accept this as a friendly amendment?
I would just as soon vote on the amendment as stated. And then if, see where that goes. And then afterwards, if we want to play with language, we can do that on a second amended.
Okay, so it is not accepted as a friendly. Do you wish to make it as a formal amendment, Councilmember?
I will draw my amendment.
Okay, thank you. So we are back to voting on the amendment. Is there any more discussion? Any public comments? Ms. Katz, you don't want to weigh in on this one?
She's too busy releasing safely mouses in her backyard. She's captured
Down by the river.
mice.
I release them
Yeah.
down by the river. I think what Councilmember Sadiq has, brought up with obviously not, I'm not sure what the sources are for the data and et cetera, but there's sides of these things that look potentially good to me that, there's always 2 sides to everything. And I'm almost kind of like where the cards fall where they may. I think I love the amendments. I love the addition of eliminate plastic bags. I think, although, it's not about paper bags, it's about eliminating plastic bags. So focusing on that aspect of it, I would support that as a member of the Sustainability Committee and all of that. I think a lot of these are very good. This inclusionary zoning, it's a shame that it has to be legislated for this kind of effect, but I think housing of the future, unfortunately, going to need some legislation because we have got to keep the diversity in our community of economic levels too. I mean, everyone, in order for this to be a holistic society where everyone where everyone plays a role, people deserve a place to live, a decent place to live, affordable, safe, well-built place to live. I'm not familiar with the negative sides of some of these things because they sound good. But am I understanding that this is just the town stating its position on legislation that it would like to see go through? Is that
Yes.
It's an influential vote. You're just trying to influence by saying what the town would be supportive of.
Yes, and if successful, the PGCMA lobbyists will work with the legislature to create some legislation. And and I will tell you from my personal experience that unless somebody already has something in the pipeline, then these will just get started this year.
they have a long
And
journey to actually get to be put.
exactly, there will be discussions about them. People will discuss it in committee, and it will be referred to a study committee to go over the summer. And it might show up as an actual piece of legislation next year.
So my only thought, and once again, appreciate the staff's time and effort to put a list together to try to reach out and grab these things. I don't know if these are things that other towns, is there's like a finite list that we pull from or what, but the one thing that's missing on here, from my perspective, I don't know if it's appropriate for this particular thing, but that's funding for Sustainable Maryland. So that did not go through last year, and to me, that covers not just environmental, but economic, health and wellness. It's all these other aspects of sustainability, historic preservation. So that's what I personally would like to see the town support lobbying for getting that funding to go through as well.
Okay, technically you were out of line discussing that at this exact point, but I think we'll take it in good spirit.
Yeah. Well, good thing I'm not
Okay,
on the-
so we are still discussing the introduced amendment to replace establish a fee for with eliminate. And is there any more discussion of that by the council or public comments? Hearing none, I will do a roll call vote on the amendment only. Councilmember Smith.
Clarify what we're voting on.
Replacing the language establish a fee for in the second of the three bullets that were proposed for support with the language eliminate. So if adopted, the second bullet would read state or county legislation to eliminate the use of plastic bags. So that was, there's a yes from Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
No.
and I abstain. The motion passes 3-1-1. Interesting number there. So now we are to the main motion. We have three bullets. Two were as initially introduced. One has been amended from two. Yes, well, originally with a friendly amendment. So we have three. I'll just read them out just for clarity. These are bullets that the town will present to PGCMA as legislative priorities. First is state legislation to mandate glass and bottle and aluminum can deposits and refund. The second is state or county legislation to eliminate the use of plastic bags. And the third is state legislation regarding construction, maintenance, and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. Is there discussion of this main motion to recommend that those be presented to the PGCMA for as legislative priorities? Councilmember Sadiq.
I'd like to point out again that the inclusion of paper bags at the exclusion of plastic bags is not a net gain for the environment. This is backed up by studies, but if we're going to have to decide today, I'll decide on not making this decision.
Well,
Additional council discussion.
well, there are other choices besides paper bags that people can make when they go and purchase something. I know I've got a series of different bags in my car or something I can take with me on a bike that when I go to shop, I use those. Some are made out of, canvas or cloth. Some are made out of hemp. Some are made out of other materials other than paper. So it's not if it's not going to be plastic, it's going to have to be paper. There are other options out there that people can use to carry what they purchase from a store to home or to wherever they're going.
Any additional council comments? Any public comments? Okay, we're voting on the main motion, which is to recommend to PGCMA the following 3 bullets to establish them as legislative priorities. To fill out the survey representing them as legislative priorities. The first one is state legislation to mandate glass and bottle and aluminum can deposits and refunds. State or county legislation to eliminate the use of plastic bags, and state legislation regarding construction, maintenance, and replacement of sidewalks along state roadways. I will now go to a roll call vote on this item. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe. Councilmember Foe, you're on mute.
I apologize. Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
No.
And I abstain. The motion passes 3-1-1. Okay. Are there any additional motions this evening?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I move to include the bullet on county legislation to establish inclusionary zoning to be included in our survey to PGCMA.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Foe to include the bullet on county legislation to establish inclusionary zoning in the request are in the items to be submitted to PGCMA. Is there discussion?
Yes. I would like to point out that research shows building housing improves housing options, irregardless of whether or not it includes affordable housing. This is what the studies show. Build housing is the directive. Don't try to impose restrictions on builders. Again, I'm going to send you all out this stuff in the next few days, but for right now, this is one of my pet peeves. If you want to build housing, build housing.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any additional comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I know from previous conversations that Mr. Lustician has a wealth of knowledge about this issue. Is it possible to hear from him at this point?
Mr. Town Manager, do you feel comfortable speaking on this item?
Are there specific questions?
Councilmember Smith?
Sorry, just what would be the like, I guess I'm asking for like the pros and cons, but I know that's very broad.
And
but you could weigh in on that.
On pros and cons, I think that our resident this evening, Ms. Katz, spoke eloquently that there's 2 sides to many things. And that includes the either support or non-support for inclusionary zoning. And I don't want to step too far out here because I think it's incumbent upon the council to debate the issue, and I'm not prepared to present a summary of studies this evening, not off the cuff. And I will say that there are jurisdictions that have inclusionary zoning. Prince George's County does not. Montgomery County does. As far as I know, they still do. The district does. And if it pleases the council, we can get some information from a variety of sources and make it available to the council to read. And if you have additional questions, then we can be here to try to answer those, or in the converse, we could perhaps invite someone for park and planning on the planning side to discuss inclusionary zoning. I do know that that's one of the issues that our capstone project folks are looking at is stormwater management as it relates to affordable housing. And I believe a recent response from a county staff member was, well, Prince George's County does not have inclusionary zoning, implying in that communication that their tools are limited. So I hope that helps you some, sir. Unfortunately, I'm not able to go into greater detail just on the spot.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Lustician, and I appreciate and respect your deference there. Thank you.
So I believe that Councilmember Siddiq had his hand up first. So Councilmember Siddiq.
And so I'm sorry about this. Building development of housing is one of my pet projects. It's what I do. I just follow it all the time. And I'm aware of what's happening, and YIMBYs, NIMBYs trying to impose restrictions on development does not work. The studies show it does not work. Now, not surprisingly, people who want to impose studies don't want to say that, but it doesn't work. And it's just, I'm horrified at the idea that this council is going to come to an agreement on these fantasies of how housing works when the studies show that's not how it works. And if we had time, you could believe me because I could send you all these studies, but we don't have time. So I mean, I don't know what to do. It's horrifying to me that we're going to make this decision today on things like establish inclusionary zoning, when that's a terrible idea. Don't do that. And the studies agree you shouldn't do that.
Councilmember Foe.
Councilmember Siddiq, tell us what you really feel. I'm joking. No, I'm intrigued by your knowledge of the situation, and I look forward to further dialogues about it. I at the moment, I support inclusionary zoning. I know that you're saying it's not economically feasible, and I know that the economics are specifically tough in Prince George's County for contractors to offer that to municipalities that are trying to seek it. But simultaneously, I do ultimately believe that it's good business for the future of Prince George's County and trying to make sure that gentrification doesn't push out all of our residents into other municipalities. We are historically, our unemployment rates here are significantly higher. Our ability to assist those people oftentimes will lie in this maneuverability and negotiation. And I do believe that in that sense, it helps us dialogue with contractors about what the project is that we're bringing into our specific community.
Thank you, Councilmember Foe. I'm just going to mention here that each council member is limited to 2 comments. We don't generally follow that rule, but if Councilmember Siddiq would like to add a 3rd comment and everyone is okay with that, if I get sort of used to being able to see everybody, so people seem okay with that, so we'll do a unanimous consent to allow Councilmember Siddiq to have a 3rd statement.
And so the thing is, I follow this like religiously, and I've got, a mile deep to go, but this is not the appropriate environment to do that. I need to send you things that you can digest and say, oh, it really is. Let's make more housing so we have more housing. And that's going to help everybody. And I'm just not prepared today to convince everybody that this idea, build more housing, irregardless of whether it's inclusive or not, is better for everybody. But that's what the studies say. And I can put together an email in the next 2 days to put this all together. but you know, to be asked right now to do something that I know intuitively in my heart and in my scientific reading is wrong is horrifying to me.
So I'm going to throw out two statements just to muddy the water a little bit, since it's always good to say things. One of them is that we, at least in principle, have another bite at this apple, because of course PGCMA is going to collate these and come up with some priorities. And there are PGCMA meetings that happen every month. I'm actually the liaison to PGCMA, and I attend those meetings. And so if we changed our mind in the next couple of weeks on this, then you all could direct me to request that that priority be revoked. So that's muddying the water, number one. Muddying the water, number two, is that I actually spoke to County Council member Galaros about inclusionary zoning and what the status of that was in the zoning ordinance a couple of years ago, and checked in again. And she said, yeah, we discussed that when we were redoing the zoning ordinance, and we just didn't have the energy for it. And so they haven't implemented the current zoning ordinance. They have not finished the redistrict or the mapping of the old zoning categories onto the new ones and implementing the zoning ordinance. So this isn't going to happen this year. You know, if we establish this as a legislative priority this year for the county, then they will politely listen to the lobbyist, and then there's going to be a county council election next year, and a lot of people are going to change out. So it's not clear to me that establishing this at this time is the most efficient use of PGCMA's. Whether or not we support inclusionary zoning, whether it's the best use of PGCMA's lobbying energies. So those are my two statements to muddy the waters and see where we want to go with this. Any thoughts? Any more council discussion?
I mean, you can run me over 311 again, but inclusionary zoning is a bad idea. Bad idea. I'll get back with you in the emails.
Okay. Any public comments? Any council members want to comment anymore or say anything more?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. During this discussion, I've managed to pull up from Boise State University, Housing Market Effects of Inclusionary Zoning, released May 1, 2009 by the Department of Economics there. At the time, Antonio Bento, Scott Lowe, Jarrett Jan Knapp, who at the time, who contributed this, University of Maryland, College Park, Arnab Chakraborty from the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Sorry, Antonio Bento was from Cornell and Scott Lowe from Boise State. And just going through this and looking at this, this is essentially what it keeps coming at is how inclusionary zoning is going to work depends on a number of things. And there are some things that they show where essentially, while prices do go, new house prices go up, square footage also increases as well. There are just a number, and that's they're talking about in the San Francisco and Sacramento metropolitan areas. I know people are out in San Francisco and they say prices out there are just insane. The study that they're looking at looks at California. They mentioned the start of the inclusionary zoning started in 1974 in Montgomery County. At which at the time, the original Montgomery County ordinance required that 15% of new developments with more than 50 housing units be sold at a price affordable to low-income households. In return, the county provided developers with a density bonus that allowed them to build at a density up to 20% higher than the maximum density allowed by the zoning. And it talks about how a number of policies have grown across the country. So there are, it seems, even just with there, and what I'm seeing here is a number of things. There's some graphs here showing, in general, what it sees the effects of inclusionary zoning would be in terms of price of housing versus quality of housing. So there are a fair number of underlying issues as well. And I think it is something that would probably be good for us to delve into and discuss more. I would like to see what Councilmember Sadiq has in terms of studies here. I'm happy to send this along to anyone. It's a PDF to just essentially to have something to look at as well. And as you were saying, Mr. Mayor, this is something we could come back to PGCMA and share with them our thoughts on this at another time. I know there's the folks over at the folks at the CDC, Sewing Economic Empowerment and Development, known as SEED, is partnering with CCAR for a development on that 10-acre lot that the church that is associated with SEED owns. Is essentially a development that is going to have inclusionary housing within that development, and that is being designed by former Park and Planning Chair Chair Parker, and who was very involved with the type and scope of housing within Prince George's County. Previously, when he was chair on the Park and Planning Commission. So I think it might be good for us to discuss this a little bit more and go from there. I think there is a fair amount that we as a council need to read up on, be able to provide PGCMA with a thoughtful approach on this.
Thank you, Councilmember Lingua. So we are there any additional council comments? I think that lots of people, I wasn't keeping careful notes here. It's a very hot topic here, but are there additional council comments or public comments? So with the anticipation that I might actually have a tie vote to break, sort of reading the room a little bit and counting votes, I would like to make a suggestion, given the impasse here, to see if we can move this forward in a way that will be a compromise, and that is to suggest not the county legislation to establish inclusionary zoning, but that the county should establish a study group to determine the exact impacts of inclusionary zoning, given the environment, housing availability, and environment in Prince George's County, which I suspect has not been done by anybody. And it's also my suspicion that a study that looks at Sacramento and San Francisco might not necessarily map very well to Prince George's County. So thoughts on that suggestion?
I'm comfortable with that.
I think that would be, my motion is still on the table, right?
Yes.
So that would be an amendment.
I'm not suggesting anything yet because it was one of the worst
So like aside from
off the cuff
parliamentary
amendments I've ever
procedure
done.
side of it, I think, yeah. Aside from the parliamentary procedure of it all, I think that is a good course of action. So if it is an amendment, I would view it as a friendly one. And especially when we have, as folks mentioned, Montgomery County right next door, who has a longstanding and robust program around this that we could look into that would map more onto Prince George's County than Santa would.
Councilmember Foe?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so now that I've got a buy-in for a friendly amendment, then I need to actually come up with something. Or do one of you want to write it?
I
I'll
believe
go.
you have a hand raised, sir.
Oh, whose hand was raised? Councilmember Siddiq? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I feel like I'm being stabbed in the eye. Montgomery County is the worst county in the United States for building housing. That's a terrible example. They're rich. They're rich for a reason, because they don't build housing.
Okay. So the friendly amendment would be to change the main motion, just strike and replace as a establishes a legislative priority through the PGCMA form that Prince George's County should study inclusionary zoning as a possible change to the zoning ordinance, taking into account the specific conditions within Prince George's County. So now that you have something specific on the floor, is it thumbs up, Councilmember Smith, for as a friendly
Yeah,
amendment?
that would be a friendly amendment, and I think it meets Councilmember Siddiq's concerns in that if his point about Montgomery County experience with this program is that it has failed, then such a study done by the company would find that. So friendly amendment.
And Councilmember Foe, you're okay with that as the actual friendly amendment as opposed to just discussing a friendly amendment?
I am.
Very good. Director Barnes, did you capture that or can you capture that from the tape?
Capture it from the tape.
Okay, so we have a friendly amendment that is newly on the floor. Any discussion of the friendly amendment that was accepted? All the counters are reset now. Everybody can talk all they want. It's a new motion almost. Any public comments? Well, Councilmember Siddiq, did you have your hand up? I didn't see your hand up. If you wanted to discuss.
I'm trying to restrain myself.
Okay. Any public comments? Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Smith. Oh,
Mayor, I'm so sorry. I had my hand up, or maybe
I didn't see it. So please speak.
All right, I understand. That's why I spoke up. I just know my only comment as a member of the public is just thank you, Mayor, for being you. I think that that is a much stronger suggestion overall anyway. It's not myself not knowing both sides of the coin. So thank you, sir.
I think I've actually heard both sides of this argument, and I just think that asking the county to make an honest look at it as opposed to being exhausted from the rest of the zoning ordinance is a reasonable next step. So that was my suggestion. Okay, roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
And I abstain 401. Thank you very much. Are there any additional motions this evening on this item? Four, three, two, one. Okay. I'll discuss stop signs with Councilmember Smith at another time. Now I have to find the agenda on my desktop. Okay, that's the end of discussion item or legislative action item number 4. Moves us to unfinished business. Are there any items of unfinished business? That brings us to new business, and I have drawn a very poorly drawn
Mr.
large
Mayor,
blue
you have a
exclamation
hand
point.
up again.
Oh, Councilmember Sadiq, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up.
So I think I'm on the hook for explaining what I think we ought to do with 5,000, 5,002. Why I think the studies show that inclusionary zoning is bad, and paper bags are generally speaking bad. Do I owe you guys anything else?
That sounds like you got a lot of homework. So I think that's all I can think of. Okay. So new business, I have a big blue badly drawn exclamation point on my my agenda. And that has to do with the members not present this evening. Council Member Lingua, have you come up with wording that you wish to use?
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I've just been so ensconced in this discussion about bags and bottles and zoning and other matters that I really haven't had a chance to really put pen to paper on this one. I think just I would hope that when we are crafting a motion that we have our dates correct as to which meetings the council members were absent, so that we can be specific on those.
Director Barnes, are those dates readily available to you?
I do have the dates available from the council member from Ward 5. I have those dates in front of me. But my understanding was for council member from Ward 6, we're only excusing for tonight's meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The dates that I have are August the 30th work session, September the 13th legislative meeting, and September the 27th work session.
And
then
also
tonight's
this
meeting.
evening. And also
Yep.
this evening. Councilmember Foe.
The council member did drop off during her first meeting as well.
Well,
And
but she
Councilmember-
was in attendance, however.
Okay.
We never defined what attendance meant, but she was there. And so I think we have to count that.
Woohoo! See you.
So we're essentially talking about legislative sessions, correct?
Yes, legislative meetings.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I may, I believe the resolution that you passed in June for the schedule includes both work sessions, legislative meetings, as well
Yes.
as the budget hearings as
Yes.
required attendance.
Thank you for the clarification. I intended to say that this was meetings of the council. And your note about the specifics of that resolution are warmly received. So the work sessions and the legislative sessions are both required for attendance. They count towards your 3 strikes.
Okay, so we're clear on that now. So essentially, we're looking at a August 30th work session, a September 12th legislative session, a September 13th, pardon me. Legislative, a September 27th work session, and a October 4th legislative session.
For the council member from Ward 5, that's correct. For the
Ward
council member
5.
from Ward 6, just this evening.
We're looking at the October 4th legislative session.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I would think probably the best, let's take the simpler one first, which would be a motion to excuse the absence of the council member representing Ward 6 from the legislative meeting of October 4th, 2021.
Seconded.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe. Is there discussion of this motion? Are there public comments on this motion? I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Siddiq.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 401. Councilmember from the 6th Ward's absence for this evening is excused. Councilmember Lingua.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion, and pardon me, members of the council, you're gonna have to indulge me for about the next 5 or 10 minutes because I'm feeling this is probably the better way of going about doing it, although it might take a little longer. But hopefully we can move through on the voting part fairly quickly. Motion to excuse the absence of the council member from Ward 5 from the council meeting of August 30th, 2021.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Smith. Is there discussion of the motion?
So is the plan to do this every session until she returns?
The council can decide whether to excuse or not for each absence, which I believe is what Councilman Lingua is doing.
And so more to the point, we understand she's going under some serious family issues. Should we not excuse all three?
Would you like to make an amendment to the motion to that effect, Councilmember Siddiq?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Go ahead, Councilmember Lingua.
The reason I'm doing this way, and that's why I prefaced this before I started, is I feel this is something that we need to take each absence individually. I have a feeling if we are grouping absences together, it is a slippery slope. Which is why I was saying it may take a little bit longer, but I think it is a more clear way of doing this.
Is that any additional question, Councilmember Siddiq? Okay, Councilmember Foe.
I would like to have more of a dialogue off the record on this before moving forward. I have concerns about the seat in general. It's my perception and it's time on the council that the Ward 5 seat has been pretty much vacant since the pandemic started. with the previous candidate. And then I don't have any idea what is going on in the council member's life, but to have 1,000 people not represented in this council has been a plague. And we now are forming a council that I think is significantly more participatory, which excites me about that. And I just want to make sure that all of our residents have good representation. And I would like to hear more offline before feeling comfortable and voting for all
Okay,
five. of them.
Can we have a 5-minute recess? And you can call me on the phone, Councilmember
Yes.
Foe.
Is that okay with
Okay.
everyone?
Move to recess for 5 minutes.
Seconded.
Is there discussion of the motion to recess? Is there public comment on the motion to recess? I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Please give me a call, Councilmember Foe.
I think we're at 5 minutes, aren't we?
I think we're at about 5 minutes, close enough. So I will call us back into order at 10:20 p.m. We were in the midst of a motion to forgive the.
Lost your audio there.
Yes, I lost my audio too. I think it's back now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we had a motion and a second to forgive the August 30th work session absence. Is there discussion of this item, this motion?
Mr. Mayor, it's my understanding that the council member contacted either you or the town clerk regarding this absence.
Me, contacted me, talked to me.
Okay. And could you share with the council what reason was given at that time?
I lost your audio. Can you repeat?
Could you share with the council what reason was given to you at that time?
What reason was given to me by the council member?
Yes.
I'm willing to share it privately. I would rather not share it publicly. I did not get permission to share this
Okay.
information.
Okay. Let me rephrase. Did you find it to be a reasonable excuse not to be able to attend?
Oh, you're asking Councilmember Foe? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Councilmember Lego, yes, I do.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm going to disconnect my phone, which is what's killing my audio. Give me a second. I was going to try, Tim. Councilmember Sadiq, yes.
In
Please
light
speak.
of this understanding that one of our fellow council members is experiencing difficulty, should we just limit it to one absence or the whole set up till now?
So if we limit it to one absence and not to at least two, then we are required by the charter to declare a vacant seat and schedule a special election this evening because she's missed 3. The council was not in session last week, so we could not take formal action to forgive the absences. So she, in the absence of this forgiveness, then we will declare the seat vacant and schedule a special election. Please speak.
And so I understand, when medical issues happen, they got to happen and you're going to lose a bunch. And I think we should excuse her for the whole set that she's missed since August.
Okay. I think that if, are you introducing an amendment to excuse August 30th, September 13th? I'm sorry, I blanked on the date, the 27th, September 27th and October 4th.
Say yes.
Okay, motion has been made to amend the main motion to excuse not just August 30th, but also September 11, 12, 13th, September 27th, and October 4th. Is there a second to this motion to amend?
Second.
Who was the second? Was that
Councilmember Smith?
Smith? Thank you.
Board number 1.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the main motion to excuse not just August 30th, but also September 13th, September 27th, and October 4th. Is there discussion of this motion to amend?
Life comes at you fast.
It does. Hearing, yes, Councilmember Lingua.
As I stated before, I think, by bunching these together, you're going down a slippery slope. probably is not a good precedent to set. And I feel that these should be dealt with individually. Like I said, I know it might take a little bit longer, but I think it's a better process.
Okay, thank you. Any additional discussion or public comments on this motion to amend?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please.
Your Honor, again, I keep coming up with that. I kind of am in line with Councilman Lingua, not necessarily in a sense of doing all of them, but I think definitely the last couple certainly should be excused. My concern, as always, is participation in this council. And that has not always been the case. Like, this has been a frustrating experience from, the Ward 2 seat, the Ward 3 seat, to see what has happened in every other one of these council seats over the last few years. Council attendance has been a significant issue, and quorum lies heavily on those wards that are consistently in attendance. Now, it doesn't seem like that same problem exists with this council, but that can change quickly. And I am worried about a precedent of forgiving everything, even though I think that maybe in this particular instance, it's plausible. I wish we could retroactively go back and forgive once we see performance from the seat, but I know that's not attainable here. So I think our best bet moving forward would probably be to excuse the last 2 meetings instead of all of them. But with that still, does that have the same effect? It starts the clock over again, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, then restrict. If we forgive one, then the meeting threshold of missing 3 in a row is already erased. Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You would have to.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
I'm going to ask a technical question that came up. Answer that, and then I'll recognize you. So because this is the 4th meeting in a row that she's missed, you have to forgive at least 2 in there, or we again have the vacant seat. So just wanted to say that, if we just forgave this evening, then we would already have the issue. Okay, Councilmember Lingua.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I would like to amend my motion to excuse the absence of the member representing Ward 5 from the meeting dated September 27, 2021.
So we already have an amendment.
My original motion.
We can't do that.
Pardon me. May I please correct this? I know it's getting late. It's 10:30, and this is when things start to falter. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to retract my original motion and in place of it, provide a motion to excuse the absence of the member from representing Ward 5 from the council meeting on September 27, 2021.
Please, let's have a recess in place. I have to consult my version of Robert's rules. We haven't been in this exact circumstance before, and I want to be sure I get it right. So please.
Okay.
And Ms. Katz, I see your hand up, and I will be recognizing you when we get back.
Motion to recess for 5 minutes.
I don't think I'll need that much time. I would suggest we have a recess in place where everyone just sits here and smiles.
Recess in place then.
Okay, I found at least the correct section. So this motion as it exists and its amendments belong to the body. They no longer belong to the maker. And thus, in order to accept your withdrawal of the motion, we have to either take a vote or have unanimous consent that it's acceptable for you to withdraw it. So you need to make a motion at this time saying, Mr. Chair, I request leave to withdraw. I motion to request leave to withdraw the motion, my original motion.
Mr. Mayor, I request leave to withdraw my original motion.
Second.
Motion has been made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Sadiq. Is there any discussion of this motion? Ms. Katz, your hand is up. You
Yes.
wish to speak?
Yes, I do. Thank you. As a resident of the town of Riverdale Park for almost 11 years now, and that I have attended a few council meetings, I know that the town has experienced some chronic absenteeism from various council members over those years, and some controversy and some discussion of changing the, I don't know if it's bylaws, policies, whatever, regarding attendance and the requirements for it. As a resident, I still would like more transparency regarding the attendance record of council members. Not that me coming to this meeting, that's transparency, of course, I see what's happening, but it's not very easy, especially at election time, to see the records of any kind of maintenance of records. To go into every meeting would be kind of laborious and not something everyone has time to do. With that in mind, I trust everyone on this council's judgment on what a valid excuse is. Don't want that put into a box. And I certainly don't need to know the personal business of council members. I'm not asking for that either. But I would ask you all to consider a valid excuse for missing a meeting in conjunction with ability to serve. I think that you could certainly have a valid excuse for missing meetings, but I think the bigger picture is, does the council member have an ability to serve? And certainly you can't see into the future. So I don't know if this is an easily answered question, but just as a resident, I wanted to express the way I'm looking at this from the outside in. And that was my thoughts for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to request leave to withdraw the main motion. And I believe that all council members have had an opportunity to speak. We've had a public comment. Are there any council comments after the public comment? Looking for hands here, see nothing. I'll do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith.
Aye.
Councilmember Foe.
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua.
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Can you refresh us on what we're voting on?
Withdrawing of the main motion. We're in the midst of a amendment to the main motion, and the request is to withdraw the original motion, which would wipe out everything that's happened thus far and take us back to new business.
Well, no, wait. Point of clarification, Mr. Mayor, it just wipes out the one motion. It doesn't have anything to do with the previous motion that was made and approved.
No, but it takes us back to new business. We've already forgiven the other council member for her absence this evening.
Okay.
So that is not removed. This just takes us back for this entire discussion. Then we have nothing that's on the floor and we're back at new business.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you for
So-
that.
So no.
okay, so I abstain. The motion passes 3-1-1. We are back at new business.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to excuse the absence of the council member from Ward 5 from the council meeting dated June 27, 2021.
September,
September, pardon me, if 6 was 9. September 27, 2021.
thank you. Is there a second?
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded to forgive the absence of the council member from the Fifth Ward for absence on September 27th, 2021. Is there discussion of this motion? Are there public comments? I will do a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith, we went off mute and came back, but I didn't even hear a little blip.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
Aye.
thank you. Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq.
Aye.
I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Are there additional items of new business?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to excuse the absence of the council member from Ward 5 from the legislative meeting dated October 4, 2021.
Seconded.
Thank you. Motion made by Councilmember Lingua, seconded by Councilmember Foe, excusing the absence of from the October 4th legislative meeting for the council member from the Fifth Ward. Is there a discussion of this motion? Are there public comments on this motion? I will go to a roll call vote. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Foe,
Aye.
Councilmember Lingua,
Aye.
Councilmember Sadiq,
Aye.
and I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. Are there additional motions under new business? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Mayor, I'd
So
like
moved.
a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oh, Sadiq's all over the second one.
I think that Smith got the original and Sadiq got the second. I'm going to say that.
Good work.
Anybody want to argue about it?
Not
No.
at all.
This item is not debated. I'll move directly to a vote. Council Member Smith,
Aye.
Council Member Foe,
Aye.
Council Member Lingua,
Aye.
Council Member Sadiq.
Aye.
And I abstain. The motion passes 4-0-1. We are adjourned at 10:39 p.m. if I'm reading the clock correctly. Yes, we are.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you all.
Thank
Good
you
night.
all.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.